I grabbed the divorce papers and I ripped them up, threw them away, and she went batshit.
I turned around and I went to beating the crap out of him, stabbed him in the chest a couple of times with a pen, like literally in his face. I lost my mind because I'd been thinking I was keeping everything hush hush and everything was okay and I'm good, and I buried it for so long that I literally snapped.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Dudes, One God Pod. We have switched locations for this recording, and we're in my kitchen, which is cool.
And on top of that, we have the most guests we've ever had on.
Yeah, we have a married couple, which is crazy. We talked about it a couple of times, bringing on a married couple. So, super excited to welcome Ashlee and Daniel Kranning. Kranning?
Yeah.
Ashlee and Daniel.
Sure.
Kranning, and I met Daniel in Spar at Crossbrand, and he told me in a pretty short order, like an amazing story about his marriage. Honestly, I didn't really believe it at first, I don't think. And then I met Ashlee, and she corroborated the whole thing, and said it was true. And they're some of the coolest, most genuine, honest people I've ever met, and I think they have a really awesome ministry for marriages. They have an awesome story for anybody that's had a struggle in a marriage. And they've used the word, since they've been sitting here in the kitchen, our marriage is perfect. So I just wanted to say that both of them agreed on that, and so you should probably listen up. But why don't we start off where you're from, how old you are, how'd you meet God?
Go for it.
Daniel. I'm from a little bit of everywhere. 35. As far as meeting God, I didn't know. I grew up foster families. My first foster family was they were preachers. I thought that was my ticket. Just I'm saved, been baptized, all that stuff when I was young. But I probably didn't meet God until 2021. Your turn.
Yeah, what about you, Ashlee?
I'm Ashlee. I'm 35. I grew up in Lindale, Texas. From the time I was 6 weeks old, my mom had me in a little Baptist church in town where everybody knew everybody. I got baptized whenever I was 6, I think. It was kind of wasn't my idea at the time. It was one of those things. It was just what you do. Your parents told you that this is what you do, and you get baptized and you know the Lord and you're saved and all is good. But I didn't really know him until I went through Soft Warriors. That's when I really started hearing God and talking to God and knowing him and what he was able to do with my life.
Was there any precipitating event that got you to go to Soft Warrior?
No, I went kicking and screaming. I was very resilient on going. I had my feet planted, and I was like, I don't need that. I struggled with being perfect, being right, and being in control. And there was nothing wrong with me. I didn't need that. I was good. And I spent the first hour and a half, I think, at Soft Warrior trying to figure out how I could get out of it. Didn't work. He showed up real quick and was like, you're staying.
So, y'all are both saying, essentially, when you really started a real relationship with God, you were in your 30s.
Yes.
Yeah. How long have y'all been married?
We've been married almost 7 years.
She's answering for you, so you can't get it wrong,
Been together for 11.
Okay.
Almost.
Yeah.
Close to it.
And you got kids?
Altogether, 6. My kids, I don't have custody of. They were adopted out. It was at the first part of our relationship. That's a whole different situation. We have 3 together. The older 2 I adopted. The youngest is both of ours.
Okay.
But if you ask the older 2, he's dad, and you can't tell them any different, and they
you
act
couldn't.
just like him.
Couldn't tell them any different.
How'd y'all meet?
Do you remember? Let's see if you remember.
5th? Mm-hmm. 5th grade English class.
No, I thought you were going to say plenty of fish or something.
No. No, 5th grade English class. All right, so I grew up in foster care. So when my grandparents, I call them my grandparents, they were actually my foster parents. They got me when I was 8 months old due to my mom going to prison for drugs. My dad went in first, right when I was born. She got 20-year sentence. She went in, the foster family that got me had me from 8 months old until my mom got out on parole. I was like 4.
Wow.
Then in San Antonio, and then our house burnt down when I was 5, and they brought a charge on that for manufacturing with intent to distribute on my mom. That added another couple years. So she went back. They revoked her parole on that. By the time I got around to about 11 or 12, that's when my grandpa passed away. And my grandma, she couldn't take care of me, and I was getting too old, like too rambunctious. My mom got in and out of prison every time. It was like a reset. Just kind of screwed me up. But I had a last-ditch effort with a family member here in Lindale. They brought me to him. I stayed there. He had a son and a daughter. I went to school there in Lindale. That's when we met.
Do you remember the conversation?
Oh, I wanted a piece of gum.
The very first conversation that you and I had?
Was it over a piece of gum?
No.
A pencil?
No.
What was it?
He walked in class. He walked in late. Class had already started, and he sat down, and he was in the back of the class, and I walked up to him, and I was like, hey, are you good? You know, you're new. I've been here my whole life, so I knew everybody in the school. I introduced myself, and he goes, you don't want to talk to me. You don't want to be my friend. I was like, yes, I do. We're going to be friends, and you're going to be my best friend, and you just don't know it yet. And so moving forward, he didn't have a pencil. So I gave him a pencil. And then he seen I had gum. After that, it was every day. He wanted, hey, you got some gum? Every day.
She always had a big pack of gum.
Yes. And so that's how our friendship started.
That's real wealth right there, man.
Was gum.
Gum.
I mean,
So
the
simple
excitement over some gum was pretty intense.
Yeah. I could write a dang book from that point forward. It's kind of cool, but yeah.
Well, give us the high points, you know. So y'all started dating in 5th grade, and then
No, we never
absolutely
did.
not.
When did y'all start dating?
In 2014. 2014.
2014. We didn't date at all. Like, she was my best friend, literally.
Yeah.
Like
Sure. Like you listened to him cry about his girlfriends. And
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't tell you how many girls.
She was my wingman. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I was young. I was a loser, dude. I was the kid that come to school and hand me down clothes. I was also the same kid that you could pick out of a line saying who could work. You know what I mean? I worked at the roping pen right behind my house. I rode horses and stuff, and we went to play days and stuff all together with horses. I had to move. I moved back to Canyon to go live with my brother that had just gotten out of prison.
You lived in Canyon?
He almost came to live with us.
I almost come to live
because
her mom.
we were so close, and he was my best friend, and he was like, I have to move, and I'm like, wait a minute, let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can get you to stay
You were
here.
in high school at the time?
No, I was almost in 6th grade.
Dang,
it was like the
do
very
you know
beginning.
David Wise?
I probably do. Look, I probably there's a possibility that we could know each other, but the whole deal, like right there at that point in time, I had been so much of a shit that I was ruining, or they thought that I was ruining their marriage. Their marriage was gone to begin with.
Yeah.
The people that I was staying with. So they said, we just can't do this, you know. We're about to split up. We don't know what to do with you, you know. They didn't tell me that, but they made it known to other adults. So I went to go live with my brother. But her mom wanted to keep me.
I mean, we were literally best friends. Like, everybody would ask her, y'all date? No. Has he got a girlfriend? No. And they knew I would know. So, and I kind of weeded out the ones I knew he would date, but it wouldn't date. So I'm like, okay, yeah, he doesn't have a girlfriend. I'm like, if you want to go talk to him. And he would literally have girlfriends. And he was like, look, you're going to accept her as my friend, or this ain't going to work. Goodbye. And I mean, it was literally all it was. From the time we were in the 5th grade. He was the only one that could call my house. I had a landline in my room. This is going to tell off.
We had to call after 9 o'clock.
He was the only one.
You know why, right?
He's the only one that could call my house after 9. He moved, and we would talk for hours, then he would hang up. And we kind of faded at that point. We didn't talk a whole lot. And he moved back for a short time after that.
I moved away, and that's when shit got serious. You know, I'd always been subjected to drugs throughout my entire life. It's always been an issue with my whole family. You know, it was normal to them to be in that lifestyle. I think it was so normal that they couldn't escape it. So was I. I've heard people say, you know, you are what you keep yourself around, and that literally became me. You know, my grandpa, when he died, it was over with for me because it was the only person I looked up to. And then my brother wasn't somebody you could look up to. When I quit contacting her was when I took the diving board and went straight off the deep end.
With drugs specifically?
Oh, yeah, 12.
How old were you then?
I was 12, almost 13. Like, I was about to turn 13, and there it was. You know, I was knee-deep in meth. I had to do something to stay awake because I ran away. The state wouldn't let me stay with my brother any longer. They had lost me up until that point. They had no idea that I was going from my mom back to the Lovins, which was my grandparents, and then over here to Lindale and everywhere else. They had no idea any of that stuff was happening because they never checked. When people say lost in the system, that's what that means, is they just quit checking up on you. When it come down to it, they wouldn't let me stay with my brother. They were going to put me in a foster home. Well, they'd put me in a foster home, a state-run foster home, and I go in there, I get some new clothes, get a good meal, and I'd be gone. I figured out I couldn't stay in Texas and do that and stay good, you know, so I just left the state completely.
Where'd you go?
I went to work for a company selling cleaning products to businesses that traveled. Sure did.
It's so funny that you were addicted to meth.
Yeah, I know, right?
You can clean it all up.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things. Like, and I did good, you know, and I cleaned up while I was on the road. Every now and then I'd have little spouts where stuff would go wrong, and I'd dive in.
Yeah.
And I'd dive in hard because I was, you know, 14 at this point, almost 15, making good money, like really good money for a 14-year-old. You know, had a hotel room, so when it come to the extracurriculars, it didn't really matter much. At 15, I got arrested in San Jose, California. And luckily, my mom was out on parole. She was out on parole. I was still listed as a runaway, so they didn't, like, lock me up or anything, but I was listed as a runaway, so they had to detain me. They brought me up there, and I said, look, man, I take care of myself. You can see I'm clothed well. I have my own money. I have my own hotel room right over here. This is my income. You know, I can take care of myself. I don't need to be in this situation. I had just turned 15. The officer, I wish I could remember his name. I'd send him a damn Christmas card every year. I mean, I really would. But he said, let me make a phone call. I want to call your mom, and I want to verify that she knows that you're here, because I've been in contact with her since she'd been out, and I told her I'm fine. Just leave me where I'm at. Leave me alone. You know, don't mess with me. Well, she corroborated the story. He called the lawyer, and he said, yeah, I'm going to pay for this. Have you emancipated? I was like,
Wow.
Really? He said, yeah. He said, you'll be out of here tomorrow. We'll get your paperwork, and you'll be out of here tomorrow. You can go on and keep doing what you're doing. I was like, all right. You know, so I got emancipated, and this first thing I did was got on a bus back to Texas.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's when y'all hooked up?
No.
He called me. He did call me.
Yeah.
And I didn't recognize the number. The phone number called me twice, and I was like, keep in mind I hadn't heard from him in
That was
over
a Florida
year.
number.
And I was like, this is strange. And all he said was, hey, it's me. I'm on my way back to Texas. And I was like, what? Where have you been? Like,
Yeah.
I knew his voice as soon as I answered the
okay,
phone.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, where have you been? And he's like, where have I not been?
Yeah.
And so he knew that he was coming back. But even when he came back, I seen him twice, and then I didn't see him after that.
I was still trying to figure stuff out as a young man. I was 15. But I was 15 back in a town where I couldn't be around people my own age because I was a bad influence at that point because I had my own place. I worked and got my own vehicle. I come back and I stayed with another friend of ours. It was a friend back in the day. Got a job, then got my own place. Had a little Pepto-Bismol pink trailer house out on 14. That point, couldn't really do anything but go to work and go home and try to do something. And I figured out a way to screw all that up. Just reckless. I was just being reckless. And I was reckless for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And at this time, I was playing ball and still rodeoing, and my life had to continue.
You're a barrel racer or what?
Mm-hmm. I did barrel racing, Western Pleasure, and played softball all the way up until I was 16. I danced as a little girl as well, so I had to make a choice because I just got too busy, and so I chose softball over that, and I played all the way up until I was 16. Got my license and was doing my own thing, and I actually ended up having to switch schools. Well, I ended up switching schools the second semester of my sophomore year, so I went from Lindale to Van, and then I found out I was pregnant at 17, and so I had my oldest daughter at 17, and then it was just from there being a mom. So everything that I wanted to do was gone, and my main focus was being a mom. My second daughter 16 months later.
Wow.
And so it was just, I had to grow up fast. Their biological decided he was going to get off on drugs and run off and leave me to take care of the two kids. So it was literally just, I had no time for anybody but taking care of the kids. And that was God included. At this time, I didn't hear him, didn't know him. Like, this is a life that he gave me, so why do I care? Why am I going to pray? Who am I going to pray to? Because he's not going to be there to answer. That was my mindset at that time. And I finally got back on my feet, and then he came along.
Yeah. So we both, in all honesty, got into our marriage or our relationship horribly. We started off horribly, on the wrong foot, the wrong things in mind. Mind you, like the only example I had as a man was my grandpa. And he died when I was 12.
And real quick, what was your father's situation?
He's been in my life, but he was very busy. To say that he would come in and show up to a softball game probably wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
He was so wrapped up into building himself and building his business and making money that he didn't have time to do anything that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
If I spent time with him, it was sitting on a job site underneath a shade tree with a CD player and a big old case of CDs, and that's what I did on a weekend. So that was, really didn't have a relationship with him at that time because if it involved money,
right?
Usually.
Yeah.
I did have a good relationship with my mom, but my dad, not really.
So, I mean, leading into our marriage, or our relationship, when we first started, like I said, I had no example of what a man was supposed to be or supposed to do. I knew that I had to work, and I've had enough ambition. I have enough ambition for myself to want to work and want to succeed, but beyond that, didn't have a clue, So we first got together, it was rough. It was really good because it was fresh. It could have turned into a situation, though, to where, like, a lifelong friend that I just screwed it up with, There was a lot a lot of different things that was going on there. I was immature. There was no way that I could be myself because I was constantly had a mask on.
And I want to add on to that too, because I was in the same boat. Like, I was always trying to please my dad. I was constantly stretching, I was wearing a mask of everything's good, I'm good, looking good on the outside. I mean, I had to be pristine, and so I couldn't be seen, more or less. And so that was one of my deals that off of that was I didn't know how to show who I was, because I really didn't know who I was as a person, as an individual, more or less, because I hid in the shadows my whole life underneath my dad's name in the town. So it was tough coming out of that, stepping into a relationship. I knew he has always been my safe place, but at the same time, I didn't know him and he didn't know me.
Yeah.
Like
At all.
It was a more or less like I remembered him 5th grade.
What did I have when we moved in together? Actually, we moved into one of my good friend's house, Kim.
So y'all start dating. He's working.
She's coming out of a bad relationship.
Yeah, like you got 2 small kids in diapers.
No, they were a little bit older at this point.
When is this? 2014.
Yeah.
And my oldest was born in 2007. So kind of gave you a rough idea of kind of where we were at.
I was on supervised release from federal prison at that point. Fresh out.
From April to September.
Yeah. April, May. Yeah, I was right there. I had a job, but it was in Fort Worth. So I moved over here. I moved in with a friend of mine. Her name was Kim. Her grandma's house, I think.
No, it was her parents' house.
Oh, it was her parents' house. Yeah, they had an empty house.
Let's
let us stay in.
Let's backtrack to how we reconnected this, because you missed that big step. So he called me out of the blue, and he was like, "Hey, I'm in town. You want to bring the kids?" He's like, "You want to bring the kids and come out to the farm? I'd really like to see you. Keep in mind, it's been 10 years at least since we laid eyes on each other in person."
But you were like the only consistent thing in his life, even though consistently doesn't make sense.
Yes.
But like you were nice to him, you were a friend to him.
Yes.
And then he left, and his life was super nuts. But you were like home to him.
Yeah, he was the only thing. He knew that no matter what, he could pick up the phone and call me at any time, and I'd be right there.
Honestly, and that's the only reason why I came back to East Texas. I came back to East Texas from California because this is the only place I ever felt like I was okay. You know what I mean? Like and I knew that there in Canyon. The only thing that I was going to do was pursue the same things I pursued when I was there. You know what I mean? I didn't have the acceptance of people there like I did here. And that's why I came back. I mean, because I knew, and then when I did get back, that's the whole reason why she only talked to me a couple of times, because I knew that I wasn't in the state of mind to where she had kids. I didn't want to subject any of them to the instability or even try to, you know what I mean?
The lifestyle, all that, yeah.
And honestly, like I said, I didn't really know God until, 2021. So if you back this all the way up to at that point, that year, he had his hand in that. You know what I mean? Like it's weird. It's weird thinking back on things because you don't try to live in the past. But
I was coming out of a really tough situation, and I was like, you know what? What the heck? It's just friends, because I didn't see him in that way. Like I was like, he's just my friend, and kids can get out. We can go hang out, and literally like. It's the first time in a long time whenever he gave me a hug, because he used to always give me a hug no matter what, but it wasn't like that, anything other than just a friend hug. But I still remember that hug that first time, and that first squeeze was just, I knew that I was like, this is it. Like this is my place. This is where I need to be. I just didn't know how. because I was scared. I was like, man, I've been friends with this guy for forever.
He's been in the friend zone forever.
Yeah. Yes.
The relationship that she was actually in at that moment started getting volatile, you know, and I was in a relationship at the time too,
And at this point, I was so broke down that I didn't know if I had any goals other than trying to keep being a mom. Yeah, keeping my kids alive.
I mean, she'd been force fed the fact that she wasn't good enough to do anything. Oh, and that pissed me off. That pissed me off to no end. Because I don't care if it's my daughter, if it's your daughter. I'm gonna tell her she can do it. You know what I mean? I'm never gonna put a limitation just because you're a female. I'm never gonna put a limitation on you because I know what a woman can do. And that's all I heard from her. When we first got together, what did I have?
A backpack.
A backpack, had 2 pairs of jeans, a pair of boots, and a Weldon hood.
Yeah, buddy.
And some shirts.
I had a couple
And a horrible.
Don't you say my hoodie.
A horrible hoodie. A terrible hoodie. Oh, this hoodie was horrible.
I had that hoodie for 6 years.
And welded in it.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, that sucker.
Sparks all in it. I used to be a welder.
It was back when cinch hoodies used to make good hoodies. All right.
Quality.
That sucker caught that slag better than any cotton shirt I ever had.
Yeah.
But yeah, she got rid of it. 4 years later.
It didn't even have any sleeves in it. You could see right through it. Like, you could see that it said cinch across the chest, and the rest of it, you could see the shirt underneath it.
It's a comfort thing.
Like, there was no keeping you warm. It was no comfort.
This is the first hoodie that a girl didn't steal and keep.
Well, you know.
She burned it.
Well, I don't know what happened. I think they threw it away.
Actually, you threw it away.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the truth comes out.
Because she kept bugging me about, get rid of that thing. It's just wasting space, blah, 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 blah.
And he went through a declutter.
Oh, God. Yeah, I do that sometimes.
Phase. And I was like, so what are you going to do with this? He's like, get rid of it. And as soon as it was gone. I did not give him an opportunity to change his mind.
Do you think that your relationship with things is different than hers because when you grew up it was harder to accumulate things because you didn't have any stability, so you just didn't have anything?
Hell yes.
So like you can just like throw things away.
Yeah. Time out. No, it's different. It's different. No, it's different. It's the opposite because I didn't have things.
So he holds on to his things.
I hold on to things. Yeah. I love things. I got things that I've had to go through and force myself to get rid of, like and literally declutter. Like that was one of my declutter situations because I've had to get rid of some old stuff to get new stuff. But I've never been in a position to do it.
When you're never buying new stuff, you always hang on to your old stuff.
Oh yeah. And that's just kind of how it was. Like. It wasn't people that I held on to. It was things that I could get, you know. That hoodie I love that hoodie.
Now it's tools.
What, in my defense?
He works with them.
I work with them.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if they're broke, throw them away. You're not going to fix them.
Yeah, they got warranties. Yeah.
Warranty.
Yeah.
Warranties.
You have to run the warranty card.
Okay, but here's the thing. He does not turn it in for a warranty. He just holds on to it and then says, I'm gonna replace it, and then goes and replaces it out of pocket.
To any women that are here listening to this podcast right now,
they don't
know that my wife is absolutely outnumbered.
Okay, but here's
I listen to this, by the way.
We can mansplain the crap out of this.
Here's the thing, like once you break one, it's not worth the trip going all the way to the store just to replace one broken tool. You've got to get like 5 or 6 broken tools, and then you charge in on the warranty.
But here's the thing. Can you find those broken tools when you get ready to replace them?
Listen, we don't ask too many.
They're in one of those spots.
We don't ask too many probing questions on this show. Let's get back to the topic.
The topic is our marriage. So at this point, I mean, that's just to give you kind of like an outline of where I was at. I was fresh out of prison, still on supervised release. We moved in with a friend. She's out of a volatile relationship. I just broke some girl's heart. Her family hated me.
No, just one person.
All right, so her dad hated me for a long time. And to be honest, he had every right. You know what I mean? Like, if a little me came up with one of my daughters, it would be a situation.
That hasn't happened yet?
No, thank God. We started from nothing, all right? Did we know how to do anything? No. She didn't know how to be a good wife. She didn't know how to be a good girlfriend. I didn't know how to be a good husband or a good partner.
I could cook.
She could cook. Oh, damn.
That's a start.
Yeah,
That's
No,
about
I can
it.
attest to that. I've eaten some of your
That's
food.
about it.
though.
I could cook.
she could cook really good. And I'm still in my previous marriage, still married to her. All right. I didn't want to get a divorce from her because it was just an excuse. You know what I mean? Like I had an excuse. I still got to get divorced before we can get married. And that went on for how many years?
4.
4 years. We'd already had a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Laramie, our youngest. She said she couldn't get pregnant. I said, watch this. At that point, it was hard to do anything, you know. We have people that come in all the time that say, my wife's doing this, or my girlfriend's doing this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And, oh, he does this, and this, and this. Oh, I can't stand this, and I can't stand that, blah, 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 blah. We're so busy worried about what the other person's doing that where do you really start to focus? So we moved to Sherman because I hated the way that her family had so much influence. My family was in Sherman. I knew that my family, like my actual biological dad, was in Sherman. My sister and my brother, we weren't close enough for them to be right there. That was an experience.
I've never lived anywhere else. So moving 2 hours down the road was very challenging because I was used to having everybody at my disposal, like right there. Family, mom, dad, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, they were all right here. And so it was definitely an adjustment period for me.
Yeah.
And I actually think there was kind of where some resentment started setting in because it was like, oh, he's isolated me from everyone, you know. So it was like, here we go again, type thing. So.
And honestly, that's kind of what it was. I was being completely emasculated by the fact that I couldn't provide everything that her family could at that point. You know, I tried my damnedest. You know, I made good money. I worked the jobs that no one else would work. Like, there's nothing I can't do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But at the same time, no one's ever built her up. No one. No one has ever said, hey, let's see if we can get it to where you can maintain this shit on your own. The relationships on her side of things was necessity. And that's where I thought, well, is she just with me because she has to be?
Because she has no other choice.
Well, I mean, who else is going to provide?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, who else is going to take on this situation?
Yeah. So when we were there in Sherman, I was like, look, you've got to do something for yourself. Like, better yourself. For a minute there, it didn't really click, and I didn't know how to communicate it at all. Then 2018 is when we come back. We stayed in a camper. We had a house.
We ran back because
Yeah.
we were having some major problems in Sherman.
Yeah.
Like, we were 2 steps away from just calling it quits, and at this time we weren't married
Yeah.
at all.
Oh, yeah.
What
We were
was
not-
going on?
Just
Oh, God,
lack of everything, lack of communication, miscarriage, not communicating that and feelings, and kind of both of us felt alone in that situation because I felt like I was on my own having to deal with those emotions, and he felt the same way, and we just didn't know how to communicate it and looked outside of our home for that comfort and that more or less like stability and that just a little bit of it's going to be okay. I know how you feel, or just somebody to listen. And so we was like, you know what, we're not doing this. And we packed up and came back. We actually went on vacation with my dad and stepmom and my little sister at that point, and we had a good time. Everything was good, but we had our mask on the entire time. Didn't realize that's what we were doing because it was everyday normal for me. And then we came back and didn't realize at the time, but we made a dumb decision to get married in November of 2018. We were not, and I say dumb decision, we were not in a place to get married.
No.
At all.
At
So
all.
at that point, it was like, yeah, looking back, that was pretty stupid to get married right then.
I felt worthless. I felt absolutely worthless. Like I was not worthy of anything. Well, this dirt that is about to get thrown up in the air has absolutely no reflection on where we are now, but it has everything to do with it. When the miscarriage happened, remember I said that no example of a man, no guidance on that at all. Only thing that I knew to do in that situation was take every bit of the load that I could off of her and swallow it. Every bit of it. Like just swallow it, take care of the kids, feed the kids, make sure she ate, do everything I can to make everything else as easy as possible. I owned a construction company at that point. I did construction for a while. I took a break from the whole mechanic thing. I had to deal with it with me. That whole thing, I held on to that. When we got back here to East Texas, I was still holding on to the fact that, like, God, she's selfish. God, I can't believe that, she can sit here and throw up how I wasn't there for her, but I was there for her in the only way that I knew to be there for her. And what about me? And that's it. This is a mindset that I see a lot of people just jump into. It's like, well, what about me? You're worried about this, and this. Well, and then they go and they throw that stone back over the fence, like, hey, well, what about this thing? You weren't there for me on this, and blah, 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 blah. But it all boiled down to, like, when we got married, we shouldn't have started our relationship in the same way that we did, because neither one of us were in the spot where we needed to be.
Like within the first 3 days of being married, we were in a screaming match fighting. Most people are on their honeymoon and we're in each other's face, fighting, arguing, throwing one stone after the other, and putting all of the responsibility of making each other happy on the other person.
Yeah.
Where we go from here? I mean, it was just a never-ending cycle.
Never-ending.
I mean, literally, it was just never ending, just kept going. We'd get past it and brush it off and bury it and keep going.
Then throw a mask on.
Act like it never happened.
Yep, throw a mask on, nothing ever happened.
Was it like short cycle stuff? Like you could have a big fight and then everybody got in the car and y'all went to eat, or was it like
2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And then,
90% of the time, it was 2 or 3 days of us yelling at each other and kids witnessing it, and they were spiraling and
toxic.
I mean, it was just.
I mean, did y'all have like any connection at this time, or was it just that y'all were living together? I mean, did y'all like have a big fight for 3 days and then have makeup sex, or?
Of course. I mean, the sex is there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
y'all been best friends. Y'all
Yeah,
are all platonic and everything.
So,
you know?
of course, the sex is there and conversations are there. All right, but they're spiteful. All right,
There's contempt.
Contempt and
Absolutely.
spiteful. Because what we did was we would fight and we would sit here and throw daggers at each other, and it hurt people, and it's just a repetitive cycle of just I would cut her down, she would cut me down. We've got a lot of stuff against each other that we could just knock each other down pretty good. It wouldn't work anymore. At this point right now, those things wouldn't work. I'd probably sit here and, okay,
Right, yeah.
I mean, because the whole deal is changed. It started to get to a good boiling point.
Because you're stuffing all this.
Yeah, I'm
You
eating
feel
it.
inadequate.
I'm literally
She feels
eating it.
inadequate. Y'all can't get along.
I can't.
You feel like you should be able to fix everything for her, and
Absolutely.
you feel like he should fix everything for you. And
And that's where it came in of everything was handed to me as
Yeah.
a kid. here, you want this? Okay, well, let's get it. And I might not have got it right then, but sometime within that year I was getting it, whether it be birthday, Christmas. So I didn't have to wait for anything. So
And the trade-off was that your dad was busy working on gone all the time.
So, and I had
And that made you happy.
yeah, I mean, it was financial. I mean, I was bought,
Yeah.
basically.
But that whole mindset was living in an RV.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had living in we had a 4-bedroom nice house there in Sherman, and when we moved out of it, we lost the contract on it because money. All right, I was going back and forth dealing with CPS with my other 3 kids.
Yeah.
And that's when because my ex-wife, it's a big situation.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw dirt on my ex-wife or anything like that
definitely.
on here, but it was just a big situation there. That's when all that was happening. I was dumping money into trying to save whatever I could there. So we lost that house. I bought this fifth wheel. It was a piece of crap fifth wheel.
Most of them are,
I had a
even
piece
when they're
of crap
new.
truck. We stayed up there while I tied some things up. I lined up a couple jobs down here in East Texas, moved back, did all that, got married. She gave me an ultimatum. Look, if you don't get us a house, I'm done. I'm done completely. That day, 4 hours later, I called her. I said, start moving your shit over to this house.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Daddy's home.
well, I mean, that's just
Yeah.
kind of what it was, you know. And I didn't. It wasn't the fact that I couldn't get a house. I was trying to maintain some semblance of anything. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm not a quitter. I wasn't going to just say, okay. My go-to was I'd get in my truck and I'd just leave. You know, and there was the same thing. That was the first thing she said. What are you going to do? Just leave? You know? Of course, because it hurt her when I did it. And that's kind of what I was trying to do was hurt her.
Mm-hmm.
And
In some way.
In some way.
Yeah.
Some way I was trying to hurt her. I was trying to, because any other time, emotion, I couldn't get her to show emotion.
Yeah.
I was so closed off.
Well, what was going on with you when you gave him the ultimatum?
It was more or less just, to be honest, and he's going to look at me, and I know he is. He's going to side-eye me when I say this.
She knew. She knew.
I was very high maintenance, and my expectations were so high. He was set up to fail.
Yeah.
And I just didn't realize it because it was the only thing I knew. Mm-hmm. So my expectations of him, he couldn't reach it. In my mind, I was so far above him that it's like, you better keep up, you know. But that was the difference in how we grew up.
And I think that's a common thought process for a lot of people today, a lot of women in particular.
Yes, it is.
Because they have this mentality of, I'm the prize. Like, you should be jumping through hoops for me, and if you're not making those hoops, then bye, bro.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about this before, men and women. Women have a picture of their ideal husband, how their wedding's going to be. Men have a picture of how their wife's going to treat them and how things are going to be. And you can either love that picture or you can love the person that you married.
Yeah.
You can't have both. You can be on the beam, you know? Like, I feel like that's what y'all mean. Y'all are like, hey, you know, our marriage is great now.
Yeah.
But it's a journey.
It
Like,
is.
you don't, like, get there.
Yeah. So we had a rent house. I was like, okay. It was a small house. I mean, it was a small 2-bedroom. And I was like, okay. It's
With how many kids?
3. We had 3 kids. There was 5 of us living in a 2-bedroom house. I mean, it was
She didn't say what size house.
tiny.
I'm thinking square footage, like
like
1100.
less than,
1,100.
1,100. Wow.
yeah. It was super tiny.
Not the size of that house the last one you saw that I had.
Yeah, it was a bachelor pad for real.
Tiny. And I was like, okay, we are done. We're buying a house.
Oh,
And-
so you raised your standards.
So
Yeah.
that was the ultimate.
Move the
You're
goal-
like,
goalpost.
not we're gonna get a house, but
Gotcha.
like we're gonna buy a house.
Like it was one of those like we've got to get out of here now. We're buying a house. I'm tired of renting. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. Like we're buying a house. We ended up buying my grandmother's house. We had some help to get into this house, and that opened the door because at the end of the day, the house. I mean, if something was to happen to him, and if we were to split, the house was mine.
Yeah.
So that was like no holding back at this point
Yeah.
because it was like you want to go? There's
You're
the door.
stuck. Yeah.
Go, bye.
Yeah.
Because I had the house. The house was
Right.
mine. I didn't hold back, really. And we got in the house, and then it was like, okay, it's just a 3-bedroom. Well, each kid needs their own room. So it was kind of like a never-ending cycle with me.
Kept moving that goalpost.
Yes.
And he's a
And-
good boy. He's just like, well, I guess I'll work harder.
Okay. I guess
Yeah.
I make more money.
Yeah.
Try
and
to.
here's the turning point, I think, for us, because we were trying to help out a family member who was in a bad situation, and we opened up our home to a newborn who was addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
Brought her home from the hospital. Well, all of us had to take drug tests,
Oh.
and
How were y'all with that?
I was fine.
You studied.
I studied and I passed. But
I had been self-medicating, and I was numb. When all this went down, this is where the rock actually hit the bottom of the barrel.
Is that like
with me? What I mean, like, is I was the rock, and I hit the bottom, and
was it like a meth rock?
it was every bit, everything, anything that could.
Any
do
substance?
anything. Any
Got you.
substance, man.
Yeah.
I have no prejudice when it comes to drugs.
Yeah.
But when I failed, then I had to, my
Did
mind.
you think, like, maybe I'll pass? Is that what, like,
Yeah. Like, because I didn't know, I didn't think that they did a hair follicle test. So,
Yeah.
what broke me, and to where I didn't have any care whether we lasted or not, like in my mind, I was done. I was so done, was him lying to me.
yeah.
He looked me dead in the eye, and he's like, I passed. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why I failed. And I'm like, really? Like, you really think I'm that stupid? He literally did not care.
Yeah.
And I was like, of course, at this point, we were dealing with CPS. And, it was a nightmare. I'm sitting there telling the CPS, look, he's not staying here. He's out of here. I'm done. We're getting divorced. Like, that's it. I'm done. Done. That was it. And I was completely closed off. I still, at this point, did not show any emotion. Like, the only thing I cared about at this point was making sure I kept my kids.
Yeah.
I could have cared less about him or what he did. Like, I completely closed off all emotion, feelings, literally anything was null and void.
And before I had agreed to take the baby, that's exactly. It was the same way before that. Everything was like it would seem like every time I would have to give something in order to get the good Ashlee.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it was for me. Is like, and then
It was transactional.
yeah, it was really
you were like, hey, we need to take this baby. And he was like, okay.
Yeah, and then there you go. I got good Ashlee for a while.
And then here we are at this drug test situation.
Yeah, and I'm just
and you're
oh,
like,
shit.
well, I've
I'm
got
screwed,
to go through this.
Because I've been sitting here trying not to kill you with these drugs. Because it's the only way that I can numb myself to where the anger's just not there. So the problems from Sherman, they followed us to East Texas. It just kept on and kept on and kept on and kept on, and I knew what was going on. Every time I had said something about it, it was, I'm dumb, you're crazy. Anytime I tried to say something like how I felt about something, the classic, you get fucking like gaslighted, just straight, no, you're crazy. I don't know why you wearing your feelings like that, blah, 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 blah.
But she was cold at this time,
Oh,
too.
yeah, it was
like,
completely shut off and cold.
which feels crazy, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and I was the same way, but I was that way because I was high.
Got it.
That's when the proverbial rock bottom was for me. She kicked me out of the house, understandably.
Yeah, well, like, were you mad about it, or were you just like...
I was pissed. I was pissed because I knew exactly what was going to happen as soon as I left there.
Which was what?
which was just everything that I had feared. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
You were going to lose your house. You were going to lose your family.
everything. Yeah.
Your wife.
I mean, like, that was the whole thing. Like, not just those things, just everything all together. It added to it. I did the work through CPS, whatever, the little cognitive recovery crap, and
I used to teach those classes.
yeah, God.
I was about to say. I was like, did you
If
teach
you've
those?
ever, like, I don't know if anybody's on here that has been through cognitive recovery and it's worked, thank God. You know, I wasn't smart. I guess I wasn't either A, smart enough, or B, had enough patience to do it. You know?
To give the listeners just a little, like, 30-second clip,
Yeah.
cognitive behavioral therapy, specifically REBT, rational emotive behavior therapy, claims that it can teach the drug addict or the anger person or whatever, can teach the identified person that has the problem a different way to think, thus give them a different way to act. Because, you know, the premise is that our thinking drives our actions. The problem is, when you ask a drug addict, what were you thinking right before you stabbed the guy at the grocery store to steal money to go buy meth? He goes, I don't know, nothing, you know? There is no thought,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's purely a feeling. At that point, I don't think that she really even knew this until I actually wrote my story on paper, typed it out. It had a couple of the lows in there, my lows, like how I was feeling and during these situations. I sent it to her to proofread, and I didn't think about it. And I didn't have a conversation with her first. I was like, man, because now at this point right now, I don't tell my wife. I don't bother her with things that aren't gonna bless her. You know what I'm saying?
You don't bring problems, you bring solutions.
My feelings and stuff like that, I can talk to her about my feelings, but I talk to her after I've already found a solution.
Exactly.
And I find a solution with men. You know, I talk to a brother. I talk to, I can name drop, 1,000 names that I can call and say, hey, look, man, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm confessing my sin, first off, of being right here in this situation and believing the lie that, I can go through the whole situation with them before I bring it to my wife. Because it doesn't need to be brought to my wife without a solution, number one. That only goes from me to her. That's not from her to me. But at that point, when all this stuff happened.
So what year is this? 2019?
This was 2021.
2021?
Yeah, this was...
This was in...
We bought the house in 2020.
Yeah, we bought the house in 2020. So, yeah,
This is 2021.
Yeah.
Or like right at the end.
Got it.
And right towards 2021. So I go to the church, Cross Brand. I went up to the first person I could see. I said, I've got to talk to somebody.
I'm imagining that Daniel at this time looked like the kind of guy that if he went to a church and said, I need to talk to somebody right now, security team would be on him. He looked like he might have about to pull a gun out or something.
Well, I mean, the whole thing was I got a little bit of a sideways look. And then the person that I was talking to said, well, what's going on? I said, man, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I'm losing everything.
Was this on a Sunday?
Yeah. Yeah. It was
like
Sunday
church
morning.
was happening.
Sunday
You just
morning.
walked into the
No,
entrance?
it was Sunday morning before service,
What prompted that? I mean, so
You were kicked out of the house at this point?
Yeah. I was staying out at my farmhouse in a horse trailer.
Okay.
But had you had a connection to Cross Brand through horses? Had y'all...
So Cross Brand...
We had been going to Cross Brand
on and off
prior to buying the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just trying because it was like, hey, we've got to do something.
Yeah.
Trying.
Yeah.
Grasping.
we were grasping for straws.
But
we
neither
were,
of y'all like had a real
No.
relationship.
No,
It
we
was
were-
just like
we were there
something
to-
like a Hail Mary, you know.
Yeah, it was
the
more-
kids will be around some other.
we were there
people.
for our weekly dose of, hey, I'm here at a church. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is gonna fix everything.
Yeah.
Make sure your hair's right, all
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that's
absolutely.
the,
It was a show.
Yeah.
It was
Wow.
absolutely a show.
Dang, and y'all would go in and like smile and act
Yeah,
nice to each
like
other.
Yeah.
everything was
like
great.
arm in arm, like
Oh.
holding hand, like you would have never known by looking at us that first time we walked into Cross Brand that we were literally like
So when you kicked him out, did you lean into that and go to church or
no.
No.
So you're the one
You actually
that was
pulled
like,
away.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
you pulled away
And I
and, kicked
seeked
him
outside.
Wow.
out. What do you mean?
I seeked outside.
Like, did you call on spirits?
No.
Okay,
I,
outside of your
like-
marriage.
I actually stepped outside of my marriage.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you.
And talked to someone else.
Sorry,
Oh.
I didn't
For
mean to give
comfort,
that like
yeah.
blank look or
No,
whatever. I was
for
like,
comfort. For
Okay.
comfort. It was I wasn't thinking, I didn't care. It was anything and everything to try to hurt him at this point because it's like if you're gonna my thought process, and I remember it like it was yesterday, was
Talked
yeah.
like
Yeah.
naked with hugs. Talked.
Yes.
Damn.
thanks, Trey.
Like literally,
Well, I mean, how else can you say it? You know, I mean, like to
Yeah.
be clear, like this is like HBO. You know, you can say whatever you want. You know,
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just trying to kind
just
of
don't
keep
want-
it PG.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know that any of our listeners
Yeah.
are PG.
yeah.
To be honest,
I don't know of anybody that's reached out to me that would be considered a.
Hey, we like your podcast, but our grandkids can't listen. to
yeah,
it.
exactly.
That
Yeah,
is-
yes.
there's
So
none of that.
I entertained someone else outside of my marriage, and it was more or less like you did this to us. You've done everything. Now it's time for me to get back
Yeah.
at you.
Yeah,
So this was like what you.
This
could
was
do
very
to, this was
spiteful.
this was about hurting Daniel,
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
100% of it. Because
but
I
he was like dying. Right?
I was
Like,
closed off. I mean, I was 100% closed off.
Yeah,
And
so it was kind of like a voodoo doll thing. You
Yeah.
just wanted to.
Yeah. So back to the
Pretty much,
good part of
yes.
this,
That's
which I say good
terrifying.
part.
I'm so
Your
terrified
jaw's
of
gonna
wives.
drop. Your jaw's gonna drop when I say the good part. Well, I went to Cross Brand, talked to somebody, and they said, "All right, well," they put me in touch with Paul Roberts.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Paul Roberts told me, to get in touch with Jeff.
Okay.
I said, all right. I
Paul
did.
talked to you for 30 minutes and went, "This is a Jeff Butler thing. Like this is not.
Yeah,
This is not
and
a Paul
that's
thing."
that's what it did. Well, I didn't know about Spar at this time.
Yeah.
I was sitting at Love's. I had my gun, and I had already talked to Jeff. He asked me questions.
Yeah. Isn't that
I didn't
rough?
understand. I didn't understand what Spar was. I didn't understand what these questions were about, and I was done.
What did he ask you? What's the lie? You're like, what?
No, well, the first couple of things he asked me was like, "What's going on?" So I told him the whole story. Told him
Yeah.
everything that's going on, and he was like, "Well, are you clean now?" I said, "Yeah, I'm clean now." That's the problem. I'm feeling every fucking thing.
Yeah,
Everything.
uh-huh.
I feel it all, and it hurts. I can't do it no more. And he was like, "Well, look, just." He prayed with me on the phone there, and he said, "I want to meet up with you," but I didn't think to call him back at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this was the next day. This was on a Sunday, and the next day was Monday, and I was in my truck. This is the only thing I had. Was my truck and a gun.
What kind of gun was it?
This is a 9mm. Little 9mm.
Semi-auto.
Sig,
Yeah.
Beretta, Glock.
Nah, I'm not gonna say. It was cheap.
You got to
Yeah.
understand the man had just gotten out of prison.
Yeah. And I was like, I was ready to eat a bullet. Like that's really where I was. I was at that point.
Yeah.
I decided to make a phone call, like just call him one more time, see what happens. So I put the gun in the glove box, called him, and he says, "Where you at right now?" I said, "I'm over here by Bodacious Barbecue," because the building was still there at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, come a couple exits down to Cross Brand to the church and come over by the offices. We're having a meeting over here. Just guys, come and talk with us." I made it through all of Spar, and I was like, "God, this is weird."
Yeah, like,
This
what
is really
this?
weird. I don't know what you planned on doing here. And he said, no, you need to stay. Me and you are going to talk. And he sat me down on the tailgate, and he said, has anybody ever told you that you're worth it? I said, what do you mean? And he said, has anybody ever told you that you're worth it and you're loved? And I said, I guess, And he said, I want you to know that it doesn't matter what you're going through right now. I was like, it doesn't matter. What do you mean it doesn't matter? He said, it doesn't matter what you're going through right now because everything that you've already done to this point is already paid for. And he told me the same line he tells everybody. If you were the only person on this earth, Jesus Christ would have got on that cross and he would have died for you and you alone. And it hit me. I was like, what do you mean? I had no idea. So he started going through unforgiveness with me. Mm-hmm. And we sat out there for almost 2 hours on his tailgate after spar. Everybody's gone. It's just me and him. That just made me hungry. The minute I left there, I called her. I said, I don't care what you got to say right now, but this is going to work, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it work. Then finally, Paul got a hold of me, went to the next spar. This whole time frame right here, it for me, I can go through it moment by moment.
And when he called me, I was like, where is this coming from? And he's like, well, I just got done this meeting and just got done talking to Jeff. And I was like, Jeff who? Who are you talking to? Because at this point, I'm still angry. And he's like, Jeff Butler. I come unglued. Lost it. Because Jeff I've known Jeff since I was 5.
Yeah.
He's been really good friends with my dad.
Yeah.
My entire life.
Embarrassment.
So it was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? He's going to go back and tell my dad. It was big. Yeah. I lost my mind when he told me he was talking to Jeff. Lost it.
Oh, yeah.
That was a whole nother situation. Yeah. I just added to it.
Everybody knows Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit different when you grow up at 6, 7 years old, going to the cafe on the weekends and eating breakfast with him.
Right.
Your entire life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of where I was at.
Yeah.
But it was a business transaction. I didn't know him on a personal level.
Right.
I just knew him from a business standpoint from being around my dad.
And you had maintained an image around him for your dad.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And now this man has just went to Jeff and spilled the beans, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, that's...
So it was, and keep in mind, I still had the everything's all right mask, and I'm good. Everything, I'm in control of everything. I look good. Everything was good. And I still wore that mask very well.
Yeah. And I had went to boot camp shortly after this whole situation. We had started talking with Paul and Melanie. That was an on and off thing because not knowing anything what they're talking about and then trying to figure it out. The one-on-ones with Paul and then the couples together, it seemed like I was taking 2 steps forward and then 5 steps back. Because when I talked to Paul, he would tell me these things. And when Paul would tell me, hey, what does that have to do with you? That didn't hit at first. And it won't hit to a lot of people that are listening. It won't hit to a lot of normal folks. What does that have to do with you, what my wife was doing? What does that have to do with your marriage? What does that have to do with you loving her? Things like that were really hard questions to answer because I didn't know how to answer them. So went to boot camp, got out of boot camp free. I'm talking on fire.
Unloaded.
Yeah, unloaded and just free.
And
now, hold on. During this time,
I'd already...
He went to boot camp. Y'all were going to marital counseling with Paul and Melanie?
Yeah, I had moved
And
back
you were
into
going
the
to
house.
individual too? And he
I was
moved
not
back
going
in?
to individual.
No.
Just him?
Just him.
Because he's the problem?
Yeah.
Because he was the problem. It was
Yeah.
all him.
I did the work through CPS. Got to come back home. Remember, it's still over between us. But I refuse to let go. Okay? It was over.
What year is this now?
This is 2021.
And you had just come through boot camp.
Yeah, this was before boot camp. I went to boot camp in October
It was in August.
August
of 21.
of 21.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where we're at, August of 21. I go to boot camp. I get out. I'm back at the house. I am all in. She's acting like she's all in.
For
All
the
right?
kids.
For the kids. She's
Got it.
acting. She's acting.
Y'all are at least playing nice.
She's acting the part. Sort
In front of the kids.
And sort of.
It was spiritual warfare.
Yeah, it
Big
really was
time.
at that point, because one of the things that me and Paul discussed, he was like, well, what are you willing to change in order to keep your marriage? And the only response that I could come up with was, I want to start with everything. Because I can't keep doing this. All right. My life cannot be this cycle of shit. It can't. I can't do it. I won't. I refuse to. And he looked at me and he's like, okay, well, let's start, and that was the whole thing. Like by the time that I'd gone through boot camp and through the little bit of that weeks after that, it was a lot of work. I mean, I put in a lot of work, and it was on me. And I'd been asking God through these individual sessions with Paul over and over again. I'd pray and I'd ask God, I said, God, just let me see my wife through your eyes. We had another fight,
I was still out talking to someone outside of our marriage at this point. Like, because I didn't care. I was done.
Like actually talking or the other kind of talking?
The other kind of talking.
So
And that was happening, and you were still also going to these couples things with him.
yeah.
And y'all were living together, and you were acting nice in front of the kids.
Yeah. But as soon as the kids weren't inside,
And he knew all of this.
he found out. This is when he found out.
Well, I had it. All right, so that feeling that feeling that you get in your gut when something's not right.
Yeah.
That's a feeling that I'd had for a long time. All right.
If there's any doubt, there's no doubt.
Yeah. The biggest thing is drew up divorce papers.
You did?
Yeah. And
Because you found out, or because you...
no, because I didn't know.
Just felt it.
I just felt it.
You were 100% doing everything you could to change who you were and how you were to save your marriage.
And up here, there was just no response. I was just met with cold, just hollowness, So I drew up these divorce papers. She grabbed them to sign them and everything. I just got this feeling, Mind you, like when I was with Paul, I kept praying to God to just show me what you see. Show me, let me see through your eyes what you see. And I grabbed the divorce papers and I ripped them up, threw them away, and she went batshit.
I turned around and I went to beating the crap out of him, stabbed him in the chest a couple of times with a pen, like literally in his face. I lost my mind because I'd been thinking I was keeping everything as hush hush and everything was okay and I'm good, and I buried it for so long that I literally snapped.
But have y'all had that kind of physical conflict
not like
before?
That.
Yes.
Not to that extent.
She telling on you, bro.
Not to that extent.
You mean nobody ever got stabbed?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't to that extent, but this was the moment. This was that moment, and I can say like this was a miracle because God at that moment showed me what He sees in my wife, and it's still an emotional point for me because at that moment I didn't see a cold, angry bitch. I saw a hurt, unloved, uncherished Jim at that point. And while she's hitting me, I grabbed her and I hugged her and I said, I don't know what I've done so bad to hurt you, but I'm sorry. And I love you. I grabbed her, I squeezed her, I didn't let her go. And that was it. I mean, that from that point forward, the way that I see my wife is completely different from the way that I've seen her in the past. I don't look, now I don't see the craziness. I mean, because it's probably still there, but it's not.
You don't draw it out.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
even if I do draw it out,
Right.
it's like forgiveness.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
and this is where it comes down to the Bible. This is where it comes down to God.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
We're in September at this point.
yeah,
And so we went and had another meeting with Paul and Melanie. And they
And
were
y'all
like-
told them this.
He did.
And so, like, what did he say? Or did you tell Paul or Jeff? I mean, like, after. So, like, what happened?
I
Bro,
told
you
him.
hugged her and you said you loved her and you saw her the way God sees her. And then y'all just went to sleep? Or, like, I feel like we're on, like, the edge of a cliff here.
No. So what that did was, okay.
We
so
sat down and talked.
Talking about a God situation here, that's where the Holy Spirit just said, I'm done with your shit, girl. You're listening or else.
So
know
you
what I'm saying?
responded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Like,
No way.
because, like, literally, it was like that shell come off, and I actually started feeling stuff, and then I was like, I didn't know what I was feeling, and I didn't know how to handle it because I've always been, for my whole life, I've always been told, you do not cry. I understand you're a female, but you do not cry. You're not supposed to cry. You have to be tough. You have to be strong, because if not, you see tears, you're weak. You're a weak woman if you cry. So I believe that. And then we talked for hours and just how we were going to get what we were going to do from here.
And it was total confession all the way, like
On both sides.
on both sides.
Anything
it
and
was
everything that's happened.
everything.
from-
So you took the mask off.
Everything.
For a minute.
Look,
Okay.
the Holy Spirit, put his hands on us and said, y'all are going to unload and you're going to
Yeah.
unload now. And this is what's going to happen. And at that point, that's when that whole turning point, and when I talk about like a turning point, a lot of people mention a turning point as being a gradual event. There was still a lot of growing to do, a lot of stuff that we had to get in line.
Because I still didn't understand.
Right.
I didn't understand what happened. I told him everything, and it was my mindset at this point was, okay, it's fine, it's good. I told you everything. You said you forgave me. Let's move forward. Everything's all
Yeah.
good. It's all good. So, but anytime I went somewhere, I still picked up that mask
Yep.
of everything's okay. I'm all right.
And
I'm in
and,
control.
and so you've had this chance to go through boot camp, to have these sessions with Paul and everything like that. And up to this point, you haven't been to the, what is it?
Soft Warriors.
Soft Warriors, sorry.
Yes.
Have both of
The-
y'all had a public profession of faith at this point? Or is,
No.
No. Yeah,
Okay.
I have.
You had
He had, but I hadn't.
through boot camp
Right.
or
Through boot
before?
camp.
Okay.
Right. And so y'all have went to Paul and Melanie's
Life coaching.
life coaching, but like you haven't been all in. Like you've been checked out, like just putting on the mask. and
Could you
everything.
tell something was different with him? Like,
Yes.
like through this time, were you resentful that like he seemed like he was doing better, being better?
Yeah.
Did
yeah,
that
I
make
mocked
you want to
him.
like?
I mocked him.
Oh, yeah. I was
Wow.
mocked.
Like I mean, literally mocked him. I was like,
Yeah.
so you're all Mr. Goody Tissues,
you saw it as, what is it called? Virtue signaling.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty
she
much.
thought that I was trying to make
Just-
her look bad by being
Yeah.
good, and it wasn't the case
yeah.
at all. I mean, not at that point. Probably before boot camp, maybe.
But you probably came out of boot camp
But
like
he-
really drinking the Kool-Aid, you know?
Yeah.
So
No,
that probably
yeah.
really agitated.
I was overflowing, and then out of boot, and that's something that's we say it at boot camp. You go home to your wives. We give you an instruction sheet on how to talk to your wife, because you can really freak some people out like that. Because it changes your perspective on things.
Everything.
Now, the next thing was, this is another time I remember you being there. I was trying to deal with the spiritual warfare in the house. It was so hard because every kind of situation at that point was met with contention. It was like I was fighting with her over something that didn't need to be fought about.
I still felt like at this point, even though we confessed and we agreed to leave it at that night and move forward and start fresh, clean
and not
slate,
unpack it.
and not unpack it at all. That, okay, we confessed it. This is what we did. Now it's going to stay here. Sweep that under the rug. Let's start fresh and move forward and go on. Well, I was constantly looking. I mean, I would dig through stuff to see if I could find something. And I'm like, here I go. Like, he didn't confess to everything. But yet I was still the same. I didn't want his Jesus crap.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want him shoving the Bible down my throat. And I'm like, you're fine, whatever, okay, you're good. Yeah, leave me alone, type thing. But that was one of the things, like, okay, now let you go through Soft Warrior.
Yeah.
But yet, at this point, I still didn't need it.
Right.
I didn't need it.
It's one of those things where you've put in the work, but, like, I'm good. Like, I've confessed everything. Like, y'all do your little ritual over there and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it was literally like, you join your cult and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Everything's good. I confessed. I said I was sorry for the first time in my entire life.
Yeah.
Because I was not an apologetic person at all. I would not apologize at all. Because I'm like, I didn't do anything to you, you know, or I had a justification for what I did.
Yeah.
So we went, and I kind of felt like I was tag teamed, but I didn't say anything because we went into
By Paul and Melanie?
with Paul and Melanie and Daniel.
Okay.
And we're in this, and they're like, you need to go through Soft Warrior, you know, just see. Was it going to hurt? Was it going to hurt? Get you a weekend away, you know? I mean, just one thing after another, like, and I was like, you know what, fine, whatever, you know, kind of like basically just to get them off my back. And so I went and signed up, and it's like, I'm not going, you know, all that week. I went through all the motions. I didn't put any effort into it. The phone call prior, nothing. Just, yeah, okay, not really sure. You know, when they're asking questions, I didn't put any effort into it. And like I said, I got there and started going through everything, and I was there the first 2.5 hours. Literally, I was like, how can I get out of this? How can I who can I call? Where can I go? Because I know everybody in town. I know where I'm at. I can literally walk anywhere. How can I get out of this? And it was 2 hours and 45 minutes of sitting there, and I was not paying attention. And it hit me. And it was literally like Jesus was standing in the same room with me, whispered in my ear, you're not going anywhere. Because you have some things to work through. And I'm fixing to reveal it to you. At that point, I was all in.
At that point, you perk up.
At that point, I was like, okay.
I wouldn't necessarily call ripping the Band-Aid off perking up, but, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, but at that point, it was like, all right. It was almost like a battle. Like, I literally, at that point, felt like, all right, I'm going to battle you. I'm going to challenge you. I was going to challenge Jesus and to show me what you got. You know, because I got it.
Yeah.
You can't see, you know, you can't see who I am. And that weekend revealed so much to me. And I was like, holy mess. And it was no longer about Daniel at that point. Every bit of it was me. And for the last 6 years, he's been taking the brunt of it. And it wasn't even about him. Like, I would literally blame him for me not being happy. It's not his responsibility to make me happy. And he would say the same thing to me. What is it my responsibility to make him happy? Whenever he started talking before I went through, he started talking about how he's supposed to be the leader and I'm supposed to fall in line. And I was like, I'm not putting him above me. Like, are you crazy? You know, no, I'm not. I'm not going to be beneath him. You know, he's not going to be my leader. I'm not listening to him like
Not
he's
to
my
him.
boss. Yeah.
Not to that dude.
Yeah, it's like, I was like, him lead me like he's not my boss. That was my mindset.
Yeah.
And so when we come through and I was like, now it all makes sense. You know, it made sense at that point what they mean by lead. And I was like, okay, I've got to get out of my own way and let him step into the role as my husband and lead us spiritually. Whenever he started doing that, and it took me a minute coming out, it was adjustment.
No,
because
definitely.
I had the weekend to myself to reveal what I had going on. But then I had to go home back into the reality of the mess and the chaos that I'd created before I left. And so immediately I had to ask for forgiveness from him. And then that's where I started. And it was a jungle gym of ropes and mountains to climb, but we did it together.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, is us doing it together. It was no longer a competition with each other.
Yeah.
And we were,
It's
that's
competition together.
Yeah.
And over the past years, since we got turned around and got put on the right path, that leadership role, I see a lot. You go through Facebook Reels and stuff like that, and you see some of these podcasts where you got guys saying, well, I'm supposed to lead, blah, 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 blah. But to me, they come off like, so God gave man dominion over the creatures of the earth. He never said anything about dominion over your wife. Like, she's not my subject. She's not
My servant.
my servant.
Yeah.
God,
She's my spouse.
Yeah, she's my partner, my helpmate.
And we just had a similar conversation with our oldest daughter. She's 17. She'll be 18 the end of this year. And she's got a boyfriend, and he's a really good kid. But we've talked to her about setting boundaries. And then that opened up a conversation with us about boundaries that we have set for each other. And honestly, at this point, we don't even know. We're in such a habit of not crossing each other's boundaries that
You don't know
now
where the lines are anymore.
we don't even know what boundaries we have set
Yeah.
for
Well,
one
I mean,
another.
and like I said before, it doesn't matter what she does. If she crosses one of my boundaries, the forgiveness is already there. I'm commanded by my God, by Christ, that you love your wife as Christ did the church. I know that people say that a lot, but I don't think people really think into it.
Right.
I don't think that they really get in their heart and pray on that one saying. It's unconditional.
Well,
Like,
and
she doesn't have to have sex with me.
Right.
She doesn't have to cook. She doesn't have to do. She could lay. And we run into this a lot at Spar. We've got people who come in and they say, "Oh, she doesn't do nothing." Blah 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 blah, and this, that, and the other thing. I said, "Well, she doesn't have to. It's not."
Yeah. Not a requirement.
Yeah, I mean,
There's not a-
what does that have to do with you loving her?
Yeah. There's
Right.
not a 10 Commandments for women to
Yeah.
maintain the house,
Yeah,
maintain
there's
a happy
not.
marriage.
I mean,
yeah.
and that was I can't. There's probably only one thing that gets on my nerves about working with other guys is sometimes they get it in their head that a wife, in order for her to get the love that she deserves, that God says that she gets this love no matter what. It don't matter how crazy she is. It don't matter how fun she is. It don't matter if she's sick. It don't matter if she's
boring you.
It doesn't matter that she gets this love.
Yeah.
Unconditional.
And in the process of this too, while walking in this new life, and that's what I call it, as a new life, because literally it was like somebody turned on the lights, because we've been walking through dark this entire time.
Yeah.
While we were walking in this new light, we also went through the Love and Respect workshop together while we were both on the same page, and that really helped see things from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
And look at it outside of the box. So that really helped, and it just the changes in our house, within our kids, I mean, night and day difference. And it went from being chaos and drama and a kid always sick or not feeling good or staying up till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning fighting and arguing, and kids calling grandparents, mom and dad are fighting, just to peace
And growth.
Yeah. And we still
Can I
had,
ask you a question?
yeah,
So, if you have a bad day, who do you talk to?
I talk to you. Like, honestly, anything that happens throughout my day, he's the first person I tell. no matter what it is.
Now,
Good, bad, ugly, no matter what it is. Like, he is the first person, and a lot of times he's the only person I tell. At the end of the day, when I say he's my best friend, I can literally say the best friend I had in the 5th grade is who I'm married to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally went into a complete circle.
The reason I asked that question was this. I've talked to a lot of guys and trying to help them out with certain situations, and it's really a hard one to get past. They complain about their wife nagging all the time. When you're looking at your spouse the way you're supposed to, and when you see her the way you're supposed to, and you know your role, that it's not nagging, that's what you're there for. All right, I'm not a therapist. I'm not going to give you any feedback. I'm probably I'm not going to try to fix the situation. But if she's not coming to me with these problems, then I'm not in my position like I'm supposed to be.
Like my wife's always telling me, I don't talk to friends or other people about stuff that we're working on or going through. I talk to you about it. And I appreciate that, you know.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a super respectful thing.
Before, anytime I came to him with a problem, he felt like he had to fix it.
Right.
And it
a
was
lot of
my
times,
deficiency at that point.
You know,
Yeah, and so you would take that on.
Yeah.
Yourself carry that weight.
And so while we were going through this change and still figuring each other out, still figuring out this new life and this newfound freedom and being light, when I would come to him with a problem, we had agreed that if he wasn't sure how to handle it, he would just ask, okay, do you want me to try to fix it? Or do you want me to just listen?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I was unclear because I was not, pink and blue headphones. Out of love and respect, he wasn't getting it the way I was saying it.
Yep.
So until we got to know each other again, the true us, the real us, he would just ask. And now he doesn't have to ask. He knows what situations are what.
And what he can fix and what he can't fix.
And whether I'm just...
I mean, if it was another guy that she was having a conversation with, 9 out of 10 of them would automatically feel the way I used to.
Yeah.
Automatically. Because everybody that I talk to, people, they get mad at me at Spar because I tell them, I say, look, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah.
Do you even know what you're saying right now? It ranges from, it's all about what the other person is always doing. I'm like, it's frustrating. And we're men. I mean, that's the reason why we do these things the way we do them, is because we don't learn by other people saying the answer. We have to figure it out.
We want to raise our boys to be problem
Absolutely.
solvers, not problem identifiers.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if we go back a couple of generations, it was very much don't talk about your problems, pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
Y'all had this big wreck and this big epiphany and this big change. Y'all had this very publicly.
Yeah.
From my perspective, because
Yes.
y'all were engaged in the church. I was there. I saw some of this. I've seen some fruit from it too. I've seen y'all working with other people, other married couples. I just want to affirm that like I get it. It's tough. That like you can't save your ass and your face at the same time.
Yeah.
And, like y'all have come on here on this podcast and shared some real stuff. But it doesn't hold the power anymore because God's had an opportunity to redeem your story.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was the whole thing. Like the only thing that I can offer now as far as help is let me show you evidence. I can show you. And that's something that...
And it's funny. I want to say something.
Yeah.
The CPS investigator that worked our case now actively goes to Cross-Brand.
Wow.
So he's seen us in our weakest point and sees us now
At your strongest.
at our strongest. And he's like, holy cow, which he no longer works for CPS. So he's like, holy cow, like how in the world did you go from where you were to here? Like, this is insane.
How did this work?
Yeah, like even him, he's like, I've never seen, talking to him, and I talked to him at church, and he's like, I've never seen a couple go from where y'all were to where you're at now. What they 9 times out of 10 they go through with the divorce. They go through with separating. And I hear women all the time say, oh, I just so wish my husband would leave. I wish they would leave. I wish they would leave. And I'm like, I wish mine would stay home. Because literally, he's the only person now that I could actually stand to be around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, like literally every second of every day, I could be around him and not get on my nerves.
But there's a reason why I can be that guy. And the reason why I can be that guy is because I openly confess my downfalls, my shortcomings to my brothers.
Yeah.
In Christ. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a constant conduit where I take my issues, and even if I'm not going to get them fixed, I'm going to confess my struggles. You know what I mean? And deal with them. And
that's through
Through
Spar.
And just I'll pick up the phone.
Sure.
I'll pick up the phone and call Jeff and say, hey, man, I'm dealing with something, and just lay it out there. When you get to a point to where you're living in a certain mindset, you already know what to pray for yourself for. I need to work on forgiveness because it's a never-ending thing. It doesn't stop. You don't stop doing the things. They just keep progressing. The progress has come from, I have to do this, I have to do that, to I get to.
Yeah.
It's I'm no longer chained by the way that I have to be. I'm allowed to be this way. When I say my marriage is perfect, I absolutely 100% mean that. And the reason that I mean that is because every time me and her have an issue or a problem, it puts a little fluorescent dot on a need that either me or my wife need, and we're able to pick up on those by addressing those problems. So when we have an issue or a disagreement, we're able to talk about that disagreement, because somewhere in there's a need for every issue, every controversy, every argument. It doesn't matter what it is. There's something that either I or she needs out of that.
Well, y'all are on the same team now, so conflict's not a bad thing. Y'all are. Yeah, I had a friend that used to say, a marriage is like a railroad track, and if the husband will stay on his side of the track and the wife will stay on hers, they'll go in the same direction. The Bible talks about being unequally yoked. It's only iron sharpens iron. That's where Spar came from. Sharpen, pray, affirm, repent. Both of y'all have been able to, in your own groups of believers, tell the truth about what you're going through, what you're doing, what you're thinking, what's going on with you in your life. Repent, pray with these people, and pray together, and, talk to each other, communicate with each other about what's going on. Well, then you're not in conflict. You're in the solution.
Yeah.
You're seeking God's, guidance through things. And so you're telling me, like, hey, now when we have a conflict, it's a blessing because it shows me something that I can work on.
Yeah.
To better love my wife.
See, the women's part, I'm sorry, but on the women's part of this, all right, so Soft Warriors, once they get through the first part of Soft Warriors, it really kind of falls off as far as community goes. And I didn't understand it at first. I was like, man, why is this happening? Well, I mean, it happens by design. It happens by design because I'm her spiritual leader. I'm the person that she is able. I'm her safe place. I'm her rock. I'm the person that she's supposed to come to.
But if we rewind to 2018, you were isolated,
Absolutely.
and y'all were isolated.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We weren't in our positions where we're supposed to be.
This whole thing kicked off with him coming into a group of men.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
learning.
Y'all coming into counseling, and then you going into a group of women, and then they gave you back to him.
Yes.
And now y'all have continued.
That is the way that it was kind of an epiphany, and I never really spoke on it. I hadn't even said this to her.
Wow.
But it hit me sitting right here, because we talk about the order of things so much that it literally, it never really come across to me that I finally found the words. My brain was actually able to find the words sitting right here on this podcast that's the reason why Soft Warriors sucks afterwards, because there's no community. And then
where-
I thought
so,
about it.
Hang on. So like where you guys call each other and you have your brotherhood and you can talk and everything. In normal women fashion, most of them click up.
Right.
But if you notice, they click up and they're single or their husbands are gone.
Yeah, I mean,
all
it's the
time.
worst thing,
Or
right?
Yeah.
It's like,
There's
and
this
so-
joke of like,
or
hey, why don't
it's-
we have a single moms ministry? It's like, well, we don't want
Yeah.
that energy in our church.
But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that, the lifestyles are different. The views are different. The ones that are married,
Their leadership's different.
their leadership is different because who are they going to turn to?
Right. They're going to turn to their husbands.
Exactly.
Or they're
Because
supposed
I'm
to.
Not, because
Right.
I'm not going to turn to somebody that I went through Soft Warriors with or another leader through Soft Warrior. The first person I'm going to turn to is him.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because no matter what, no matter where he's at, he's going to be a phone call away.
Well, and the thing
And he still
that
leads.
every man gets accused of is not asking for directions. That's the first
Absolutely.
cliche about a man. But the first thing that happens if I get in a pickle and I don't know what to do, I call you, I call Jeff, I call somebody.
Yeah,
I call
absolutely.
Paul Roberts.
Yeah, me too. I'm
I'll
the
send him
same
a
way.
text, hey, I need 5 minutes. And he'll answer, hey, this is Paul. I'm like, okay, just shut up. I got to tell you this. I did this and I said this and I said that. Then he goes, okay, what do you want to do? You want to pray about it or what are we doing? I'm like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's same
okay.
with me.
And I used to always have the answer. And now my answer is I need to run this by somebody that
Absolutely.
also believes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times, I don't even realize like we have a disagreement. That's how small and really unimportant that they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're so small. All of the stuff that was so big for so long. I mean, the smallest thing
Yeah.
would be blown up. He could look a certain way, and I'm like, "What are you looking at?" And it's a whole big thing, and we fight for 3 days, and we
Yeah.
cut each other down, and now it's
And
like,
you don't even remember what you were fighting about.
yeah. By the time we're done with it, we're done. We're circling the drain, fighting
Yeah.
about the dumbest thing, and don't even remember where it started.
How big was love and respect for y'all?
Oh, it was huge.
It was big for me.
It was huge.
It was huge for me because I didn't understand. Like I would say something and then she would repeat it back, but off. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm like
Like
beforehand?
you'd say something and she'd be upset about it, and you'd be like, "Why are you upset? I said this."
Yeah, and well, because she was hearing something different, and the same thing, vice versa. She would say something, and I was hearing, "Hey, man, you suck at this. You're not good enough, or you don't make enough money.
I'm gonna
or
leave you."
Blah blah blah. Yeah, and that was the whole language thing there. But
And then after we went through the workshop, we read the book together.
yeah, and then I
Like-
listened to it again.
Yeah.
I listened to it again the other day.
Yeah,
So-
I
Yeah,
mean,
They're
Yes.
having one Valentine's Day and the day after at
Yeah.
Crossbrand. So
Yeah.
we've got a couple couples that are going.
It's literally changed our entire perspective and outlook and our house. We were literally to a point that there was no coming back.
Yeah. And
Like divorce papers filled out just needing to be signed and filed.
yeah. Your mentality is really the evidence of this. I want to affirm you. Women don't change their minds. Like women don't change their mentality. And for you to be able to look at these situations now and look back on them and see the huge difference in your reaction because you realize he's not the source of my happiness. He's my husband. We're in this together on the same team.
merely a byproduct,
Yeah.
and it's the same both ways.
I could sit down looking back through the years and I can tell you every part I played in an argument. Every button I pushed. I can tell you what part I played in it.
I mean, I feel you. I look
Like-
back on my
That's
previous
scary.
marriage.
That's chilling.
I
Yes.
can look back on my previous marriage, and I went through marriage counseling, and not with Paul and Melanie, but like I did everything I could to fix it in the end.
Yeah,
But I can tell, I know what my part was now, and I left that marriage thinking, man, I did everything I could have done, and I did at the time with the knowledge I had, and the information in Love and Respect in the book and the workshop. It's not new information. But it's actionable, it's digestible, it's understandable, it's presented in a way that,
it hits both sides.
well, that was the big takeaway. First night, Michelle and I are there. And like all the women are excited. The dudes are like, you know? Like 2 hours in, dudes are like, and the women are crying or looking down, or they're like on their phone scrolling, you know? And Michelle goes, what's wrong with these women? Because Emerson doesn't mess around.
No, he gets right to it.
It almost doesn't matter how good your marriage is. If you go to Love and Respect, you're going to have a takeaway of something that you either misunderstood. And like half of the fights that people that we, you know, when we did our group table stuff, it was wild because the shock that you see on somebody's face when they realize that they thought they've been fighting about something, but they're not fighting about that. Mm-hmm. That is a wild thing to experience.
Yeah.
You know, like just to see somebody else, because you know that like in their mind, they're being good. They're being as good as they can be because they're in this marriage workshop. And I'm not saying that I can know people's hearts, but I'm just saying that like I can read faces, you know?
Sometimes they have subtitles
Yeah.
right across your
yeah.
face.
And that's a lot of it too. Like thinking back, I looking at it and I'm like, you know, if it wasn't for Paul and Melanie, and
Yeah.
it literally, Paul and Melanie were saving grace. They were God's gateway into our life.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because if it wasn't for them, we would have destroyed each other
And
a friendship.
Absolutely destroyed each other.
That's the importance of the church.
Yeah.
Yes.
I truly believe that the church is put on this earth to restore people.
Yep.
Like what Steck said.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
And whenever the church is not doing that, it's just a country club.
Yeah.
And that
absolutely.
was the thing. Like I wasn't getting church.
Right.
I was going just
To the country church.
yeah.
To
like,
the country
well,
club.
I'm just going just to show face and yes,
Eat a
because
sausage biscuit, drink some sweet tea,
yeah, because
listen
everybody
to some
knew
music.
who I was,
Yeah.
and it was good, and I was good, and hi, how are you? And they can go down to start their week and say, oh yeah, I seen Ashlee at church, you know, and all was good.
Yeah.
But I didn't get anything
Right.
out of it that I needed
Right.
because I wasn't there.
And the heart change hadn't taken place.
Yes.
That's a big thing that people don't realize.
It's the night and day difference.
The hard heart.
the
Yeah.
Yes.
the miracle that takes place whenever the Holy Spirit enters in, whenever
Yeah.
y'all were having that discussion
Absolutely.
that night.
Yes.
That's the real miracle.
I mean, that was
Yeah,
that had to
well-
be full on spiritual
Yeah,
warfare.
it was.
Absolutely.
You know, Paul had told me many times over and over again. He said, all you have to do is trust in God.
Yeah.
He said, that's all you have to do. It was so hard for me to understand, like, at first. And then when that all happened, you know, that's the first thing that I was thinking. Like, okay, I trust that. It's yours. Do with it what you want. You know, and there's times after that where, like, it's been a road of maturity, growing.
And I can honestly say I see people differently.
Absolutely.
Like I see my dad differently. I will say Jeff surprised me because he did not tell my dad anything. But which I didn't know Jeff on a
Jeff's a
personal.
gangster.
I didn't know him on a personal
Yeah.
level. So I know him on a personal level, and I see him differently than what I did from a business perspective. Yeah. And at the same time, it's hard being connected with God and then meeting people on a business perspective because you can see through their mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
And
definitely can.
So
Yeah,
it's
the
hard.
veil.
Yes.
The veil's torn, yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, and it's crazy because he works out of town now, and honestly, the last week he was gone, I felt that disconnect from God. And just here recently, just this last time that he was gone out of town, I felt this disconnect. But I knew that I had to do something. And I didn't say anything to him about
I
it.
could tell.
But he knew, and he just kept asking me what's wrong. And I was like, nothing.
She didn't want to bother me while I was away.
Yeah, with it, because I didn't want him to think that it was something that he was doing.
Right.
But I had distanced myself from God. And it was like, kind of felt like I was going back into old ways of being able to handle things on my own. And I was like, and I recognized it and seen it. But it was right before he came home. I was like, it hit. And then I felt that connection again.
And then she told me about it.
And then I told him, I was like,
She
oh.
brought you the solution,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
the problem.
She brought me the solution. After it was already solved, she brought it to me.
Yeah.
She's like, look, I felt so disconnected.
Bro, my wife does that. Like, I'll be like, hey, just tell me what's up. And she's
Yeah.
like, and she'll like think about it and think about it. And then she'll be like, hey, let me tell you what I was thinking about yesterday. I'm like, I mean,
About time.
is it a problem?
Yeah.
The problem is she solved it. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm good. If it's good, if we're good, we're good, you know?
Yeah, but a lot of it is, I feel like I can help with him being gone, out of town working. I feel like I can help if I can solve the problem.
Yeah.
You know, because he's still leading. Because at that point, that tells me that without me doing it, without me saying anything and letting him take lead,
Yeah.
he's still leading us from where he's at.
He's set up his kingdom.
Yes.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
he's
I don't-
got everything.
I don't have to be sitting on some throne or anything like that. I have
Exactly.
set it up
Yeah.
to where
Right.
I don't have to be there in order for it to operate properly.
Yeah.
And that is because I still am connected. The Holy Spirit will work in my house without me being there
Right.
directly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's one of those things that if they choose not to follow that, that's on them.
Right.
That has nothing to do with me.
There's no reason for you to lose your mind over
Yeah,
it.
there, it's not a deficiency on my part. Vice versa, if I'm falling away, it's not a deficiency on her part. She still has her mindset where it's supposed to go, but she knows that I'm there. I'm solid. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
There are times where I fall off. It's not that I fall off completely, but I fall off. What I mean by falling off is we're men. You get to a point, you're a certain age, you start forgetting stuff. Like my testosterone's low. I start forgetting shit. It goes from one thing to the other, and I get so frustrated with myself.
Yeah.
It's because my body is my body.
And
know?
you give yourself grace on that.
Well, I try to.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm really hard on myself. I get
Right.
mad, angry with
Yeah.
myself because it's stupid stuff.
A lot of times we're so connected now, so in tune that we don't have to say what's going on because the other one already knows.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can forget what you have or haven't said.
Yeah.
Yes, and he already knows.
Yeah.
He'll say something, or I'll come to him and I'm like, "Hey, are you dealing with this?" And he's like, "How'd you
I know
know?"
that.
You know, and I'm like, "But
Yeah.
we're so in tune that sometimes that I have to get him back in line." And
It's a prime example. The hearing aids.
yeah, so he's got hearing aids now. But he was like, "I don't need that," and I'm like, "Yeah, you do. You're missing out on a lot."
What?
And,
What?
Yeah, and he,
I'd get pissed off, man. I'd get mad because I could not. It's like they were mumbling at me. People were mumbling, like my kids, like they were mumbling at me. I'm like, talk.
Yeah.
Like you know how to
Clear,
talk
yeah.
clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk to people all the time. You always run your mouth, and you're clear. But it's not that they weren't talking completely clear. It's that I couldn't hear some of the sounds that were coming out.
and
Yeah.
I've talked loud my whole life, so he could always hear me.
Imagine that.
And I've always been loud, and so he could always hear what I had to say.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point he's like, "What'd you say? I didn't hear you." I'm like, "How did you not hear me? I'm a loud person. How did you not hear me?"
Yeah.
I mean, I get told all the time, "Are you sure you're not hard hearing?" I'm positive. I can hear a pin drop,
Yeah.
but I just talk
Yeah.
loud.
Y'all pray together.
Absolutely.
Is
Not
that
as,
an
not
every
as much
night
as we
thing?
she
Okay.
no, not as much as we should. We used to pray every night. I used to pray every night, but I that's one of the things I've been lacking on a lot lately
And we would
Is that
alternate.
because she goes
Okay.
night because she can pray. This woman can pray. I'm envious because me and you are both the same. We have a conversation with our dad. You know what I mean? And she has a prayer that could be televised. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's pretty. Sounds so good. It might just be me. I don't know. I love that.
I
I
get
really
that
do
a
love
lot.
that about her is that she can really, and it just flows. But
And I don't see it, but I do get that a lot. My grandmother says the same thing. And, I know we used to alternate nights. One night he would pray, next night I would pray. But now that he works out of town, it's a little bit more challenging because our schedules were so different. There's times that he's going to bed as I'm getting up. And
Right.
vice versa. So now it's a little bit more of a challenge to do that.
Habits, though, we talk about getting in the, practice makes perfect. It doesn't make perfect. It makes it a habit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you practice it the right way, it keeps going. And then when you stop practicing it,
I pray for him and bless him every morning and every night. A lot of times he doesn't know it, but
yeah.
I do. I pray for him and our family and those that are enemies that we don't know about. I mean, I pray for everyone.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I do the same thing. And it's a lot of time because how I work and everything. I got one other person with me sometimes, but I'm alone.
Mm.
And I'm very alone. And I get a lot of time, and that's why I get to really sit and. If I read scripture on my phone or something, I get to sit and really meditate on it, really just
digest
on
it
and
chew
digest
on
it. Yeah, and that's one of the best things that I think that has ever really happened as far as me goes is actually digging in to a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
In scripture, but with everything that we're blessed with, I'm blessed. My family's blessed. I can stay thankful for the rest of my life and still not thank enough for everything that I've been blessed with. And I don't chase money. We don't chase money. I still push her to want to be self-sufficient, And that's something that even from the beginning of our relationship that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Because I want her to be able to stand on her own. If anything ever happens to me, she will never have to, I know for a fact that she will never have to rely on anybody else. She doesn't have to look for anybody to help her do anything. And that's a comfort that, and probably the only thing that I can take any type of credit for when it comes to her growth is the pushing.
The thing that I can say that we both have grown in as individuals and as a couple is we went from not being able to trust each other to drive across town to now I can honestly say we trust each other to be hundreds of miles away from each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
With him working.
It's enabled me to be in different countries, in different cities, in different...
I hear it constantly. People are like, you're not worried that he's going to step outside of your marriage? Not at all. The thought never crosses my mind.
Yeah, mine either.
And honestly, I can say that even when somebody brings it up, I don't sit with it later on when I'm by myself.
And stewing.
On it. Like, oh, is he doing this? It's just not something that comes across.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I quit going to SPAR when I started going to Wilderness, and we have check-in, which is like SPAR.
Absolutely.
It's not maybe as structured.
All right, so I love SPAR. SPAR is a great thing, and it's a good spot for some people to start, but they need to go to boot camp. If it's not a requirement, it needs to become one.
I think it definitely could end up, kind of a circular door where people come in, they have a cathartic experience, they dump on the group, they leave, they feel better, they keep acting the same way.
Exactly. I went there because I needed something.
Yeah.
The brotherhood doesn't start until that silent goodbye. It doesn't start until you have that repentance, that metanoia, the change of mind.
I can definitely agree with that. I was going to check-ins before I went through Freedom Weekend. There would be stuff that like these 6 guys are talking about, and they'd be like, "Oh, wait, you haven't been through Freedom Weekend yet," and I'm like, "No."
It's like throwing tools at a guy.
Exactly.
You're throwing tools at a guy, and he don't know how to use them.
Exactly. He has no idea what's going on.
I think like it's nobody's fault or anything like that. It's a good thing, but it should be a door opener to either a Freedom Weekend or boot camp, and then you have instructions to each tool.
Right.
All right. At that point, you're prepared.
Yeah.
And like I'm your brother. I'll show up and I'll fight with you all you want. Like I'm right there with you. But show me the evidence of you putting in the work. That's where I kind of differ. But as far as the putting in the work, Trey, you yourself, I can see the evidence in you.
Thank you.
Of the change, of changing, of the work that you've put into yourself. All right. It's
can see it
evident
as well.
It's not just evident in the way you carry yourself. It's evident sitting right here. We're in your kitchen. We're sitting right here. It's evident in everything in your life at this moment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I was sitting at check-in a couple of months ago, and I just told the guys, I was like, I'm probably going to regret saying this, but I love my wife. Like,
She's awesome.
like every day I wake up,
Yeah.
I love her more than I
yeah.
did the day before.
Yeah.
And I love her so much that I started reading about Job, and then I got scared.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was like, God, I love everything that you've blessed me with. Please
Everything.
don't take
I'm
it away.
so thankful.
I don't know that I would survive. And so
Yeah.
that kind of, my question for both of y'all individually, or however y'all want to answer it, is like, what are your biggest fears right now?
Like fear,
That's
any
open-ended,
fear
baby.
at all? Open ended.
What's your biggest fear? Not snakes.
Not
Well,
another
no,
country.
My biggest fear at this moment in time is not being physically and mentally able to accomplish the goals that I've already set. And it's really not even a fear. It's more of a lingering notion. You know what I mean? I got to get my chemicals right, because if my chemicals don't get right, my job is going to suffer for it. And if my job suffers for it, then my income suffers. But, that's not my worth. God,
Right.
I will be
Right.
provided for.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things. It's one of those things in the back of my mind that, hey, you got time, but how much time do you got? You know, and I want to make sure that I can retire at a good age. I'm afraid of my body. Another fear. I'm afraid that my body's going to go before I'm able to get her on a beach naked. I mean, literally, like I don't want to be a wrinkly old man. I'd rather be like 50 and okay built. Dad bod's all right.
Yeah.
But that's my fear.
What about you, Ashley?
I can honestly say that my fear is losing him. And it has nothing to do with
Him.
yes. It has nothing to do with him and the kids, obviously. It has nothing to do with the monetary. It has nothing to do with anybody, like necessarily him. It's just he's my best friend. He's the only person I really talk to.
Just like what
So
you said.
so like yeah. So like literally if something was to happen to him, I would be lost.
Yeah.
Like wholeheartedly lost. I would not know which way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not because he set his kingdom up like that.
Right.
It's because he has done so well at setting up his kingdom, at setting up his castle, and putting you in a position,
Yeah.
putting kids in a position to
Yes.
make this thing work
Yeah.
Yes.
like it's supposed
And
to.
I
So
can-
at the beginning of our relationship, I would never be able to match up to her dad. You know what I'm saying? As
Yeah.
far as providing, but there's nobody that can match up to what
You've done.
I've done.
And,
Yeah,
and that's,
exactly.
And that's the thing is now I work for my dad.
Yeah.
And
The relationships have changed completely. Like,
yes, so I went from not having a relationship with my dad really, other than I seen my dad twice, maybe 3 times a year total after I had kids. Very, very seldom did I talk to him. Like maybe once every 3-4 months I would talk to him for a few
Yeah.
minutes, and that was it. When we got good and everything was good, I went back through Soft Warriors as a leader. My
Yeah.
perspective had changed, and it was like, okay, I fixed the most important relationship. Number 1 was with God. I fixed that relationship. Number 2 is my marriage. I fixed the relationship with my kids. Now I need to fix the relationship he's putting on. I need to fix the relationship with my earthly father. So I tried multiple times, and I was hit at a dead end.
Yeah.
So I finally just prayed. I was like, God, just put me, whatever it looks like, put me in his world. Get it to where I can have a relationship with him, a healthy relationship
Yeah.
with him, whatever that looks like. And he has told me for years, you'll never work for me. I'll never hire family. You'll never work for me. You'll never work for me. You'll never work. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine. And so I went and got a CDL, and I was driving a school bus, and he kept telling me I'd never have a CDL. I didn't need a CDL, and I couldn't do it. women don't drive trucks. I grew up my whole life, big trucks.
Women don't drive trucks, but 12-year-old girls can drive dump trucks.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I didn't need a CDL. Well, we were out on Christmas break, and first year I was driving for the school, and he called me. He was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Sitting here with kids. We're fixing to get ready to go back to school." And he was like, "Well, do you want to come work for me part time?" And I was like, "What?" You know, like, I was like, okay, God, I see you stepping in. You know, that was literally what it was. And I called him and I was like, "Hey, my dad just offered me a job." And he's like, "Did you take it?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said yes, but I wasn't going to quit driving. Like, I put my own stipulations on there where I was like, "Hey, I've already committed to this. We're going to see how this goes." And he's like, "Well, this is a test. Let's see if you can pass it." I've now been with him for 3 years.
Yeah.
I see the spiritual warfare there, too. And it's a battle between the two of us.
And isn't it funny how, like, we get to that point where we're just like, all right, God, I've done all this stuff. Will you just, like, I don't know, will you put me in the same space as him? That's so dumb. I can't believe I said that. But then... that's what God does.
Yes.
He takes the things that don't make sense to us. And he flips them around.
Absolutely.
And he uses it for his will and his glory.
Since working for him, you're talking about a man who did not go to church.
Right.
He was not involved in the church. Like, he believed.
Right.
But he wore a mask, like all the things. And now he is actively involved in a church. He sits on a board of a ministry and just really is dipping his toes in.
The ripple effect.
I mean, literally.
Yes.
And it takes one person to
and
break
honestly,
that cycle.
I can tell you right now, and I never thought it would happen ever, but literally, Daniel is leading 2 households. Because when he speaks into me, or he speaks and he's leading, and I turn and I speak into him, then he goes to his house. And so literally the one person he did not like, who would not amount to anything, is now leading, speaking into him and leading 2 households, and he doesn't even realize it.
Wow.
So, well, he's going to know now.
Well, I mean, I hope so. It's okay. I mean, because that was one of the things that I was talking about earlier. You know, we get talked about the judgment. We can see people when they're hurting. But on the flip side of that, you know, we're not supposed to judge sinners. We love sinners, and we show them what God is. That's the biggest thing for me. Like, I've seen myself completely redirect myself and not think about it on how I deal with people. And she's seen it too. She's like, why did you do that? No, I'm like, it's okay. 1 or 2 times. Like, why did you do that? I'm like, well, because it's all right. You know, they just need a little bit of space or whatever. But the believers, show me evidence that you are living by what God wants you to do, because there will be evidence. I mean, there will. I mean, there's absolutely no way that you can be doing everything that God wants you to do and there not be a trail of evidence. And you see it so many times, you know. I don't say that to people like, show me your evidence.
Right.
No, but you get introspective. Like, you start to see
God working
in these certain situations. Like, people ask me, like, well, who should I go and talk to about my marriage? I said, well, you need to find somebody with evidence that God is leading their household. Number one. Because, I mean, that is number one.
That's great advice.
It's really
I used to tell people,
if you go to anybody, if you're going to anybody for any type of marriage advice, you better make sure that God is leading that household. And
that's why you don't want your wife being friends with a bunch of single women.
Exactly. Because she'll end up being a single woman.
Absolutely. The next question is, well, how do you tell if God is leading their household? It's hard not to tell.
It's
very hard, because
the fruit
shows everything. And that was one of the hardest things for me to understand, was like, so I didn't come to Trey for marital advice. I'd come to unload on him, but that was it. And because I knew he loved me. I knew that without a doubt he loved me. And he would accept it, you know. And that was one of the things that was hard for me getting started, was finding the places to find a picture of what I wanted to be so I could kind of chase it. There's no perfect marriage. Our marriage isn't perfect.
Yeah.
But to me, it is. I make mistakes all the time. She makes mistakes.
Well, I mean, if you look at it compared to where it was to where it is now, it is 100% perfect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but what I'm saying is, it's like to put things into a real world view. All right. Some people would not be okay with my marriage. All right. My marriage is built on us and God.
Yeah.
You know, I was told if I felt that God wanted me to be in a different position where I was, I would fix that position. And if I didn't, you would start seeing it everywhere else.
Talking about position, I think Chance, I was listening to his episode, I guess it was yesterday, whenever he said the servants see the miracles. That is like, that reigns true across the board.
Absolutely.
Whenever you have a marriage that is going into serving one another, with your children, I have to serve you as hard as that can be sometimes. I have to serve you in the way that God desires me to serve you.
Absolutely.
And people have that disconnect of what a good marriage is. I think a good marriage is someone who has seen issues come up and has been able to work through things and see God reign true in all of it.
Yeah.
Because it makes no sense why two people from completely different backgrounds should even be together in the same household.
Absolutely.
Together. On paper, y'all shouldn't be together.
Exactly.
No,
y'all should not be working.
Yeah, if you were going by the world point of view, we should not be together at all.
So that brings me to another question. How powerful is y'all's marriage?
It is as powerful as we let it be. We can either A, focus completely on us, or B, we can dive into any situation with anybody and maybe help lead them through it. It's only as powerful as our weakest moment. You know what I mean? If we get to a point to where we hit a time where stuff is getting rough, just like the connecting dyad, you know, how powerful of a man are you? I'm not.
Right.
I'm not. But the Holy Spirit,
that's it.
When I'm weak, the Holy Spirit is powerful.
And y'all are one entity. Y'all are married.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, so like Chance said, like, man, I feel uncomfortable considering my wife my best friend because she's so much more than that. And I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think y'all probably agree with that too. Maybe it was Louis Blum. He talked about, you know, needing water. And he goes, like, when you pour out, you become the fountain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you never need water again.
You're never thirsting again.
I see that in y'all's relationship, in y'all's story. Both of y'all were thirsty. The well was dry.
Dry.
And,
filling up with sand.
And you turned to God and you went, I'm out of ideas. I don't know what to do. And she couldn't not see that. She didn't like it, but she couldn't not see it. And even you know, Ashlee, you kept behaving badly on purpose.
Yeah.
And like, how confusing and terrible must that have felt like?
Yeah, a lot of it was, you know, as he says, hurt people, you know, and I was still hurt. A lot of past transgressions come up. The more that would surface, the more I wanted to just keep acting out and just let it be, you know, be known that, hey, I was hurt, because I didn't know how to verbally express, hey, this hurt me. I did not. I mean, I'm not your...
Even if you did, he would go, okay.
Yeah, well, even if I did, he wouldn't know. Like, if I was to come to him at that time and be like, hey, this hurt my feelings, I would literally blow him out of the water, because I wasn't raised up with the top. Yes, I was raised up with the silver spoon and did not want for anything material things, but I also grew up like, hey, you got to keep your emotions in check. You don't say anything. Nothing hurts your feelings. You just let it roll off. Let it go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
So I did not know how to verbally express what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I didn't know what I was feeling. because I didn't have that connection of emotions.
Yeah.
Like literally that connection was sawed off and capped off, and those wires didn't cross.
Right.
So I was just I didn't know how to talk to people, nothing.
And you didn't have the tools for that either.
Yeah.
Raising kids is pretty monkey see, monkey do. You know, like,
Absolutely.
like there's a lot of people that want to say, "Hey, do as I say," because I said so. But you know, kids are gonna do what you do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was a big
So
thing.
your
Like,
kids have had a front row seat
for all the
at
shit.
watching y'all
Yeah.
mess everything up and make a wreck, and they've watched y'all and God together
Repair it.
resolve it.
But they've also watched the older two have watched their biological fly down the rabbit hole
Yeah.
and disappear and come back, and then spiral down the rabbit hole again and try to come back. So they've seen it all.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for where we're at. It took till about a year and a half, 2 years ago that I was actually thankful that they actually got to see us repair what we repaired and make a change. I'm only the person that I am because of my lessons and God guiding me through changing to break that cycle. You know what I mean?
The indirect affirmations that we get is hearing our older two say, "I want a marriage like mom and dad's."
Amen.
Wow.
That is the biggest affirmation that
Yeah.
anybody, I mean, when your oldest is 17 and your middle one is 15 and they say, "I want a relationship like mom and dad."
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that is,
Because
they
they've
don't-
seen the change.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they're like, "I want the relationship now. I want the marriage now." That's what they want. And so it makes sense. Like, we're like, hey, you know, like we're doing something right
Yeah.
because they're able to see it. We could see it with our oldest. Our oldest was turning out just like me. And she's still got a long way to go on some things, because there's things that she's still a lot like me. Because even though I had everything I could ever wanted as a kid, I wanted them to have a better childhood.
Yeah.
So it's like, here it is. I say, you know, here we hand over fist anything that they want. He's like, they don't need all that. So there's where.
And then you're like, why are you trying to ruin my
Yeah.
children's childhood?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and the whole thing is like, this is where our only disagreements, they come in at that situation right there, because the way I think, you don't really appreciate anything that you haven't earned or worked for.
Yeah.
And how do we make value of some of these things that these kids get? Even the lessons, you know, like she was like, well, why don't you stop her? I was like, why am I going to stop her? Let her make the mistake.
Yeah.
Let her screw up. You know, like if
That's
she
hard
doesn't-
as a parent.
And,
I mean,
and
she
finding
doesn't
that
screw up,
boundary.
Yeah, if she doesn't
Yeah.
screw up, I mean, there's no way that she's going to learn. I mean, because our oldest, she is a lot like her, but she is definitely just like me. So you're not going to be able to tell her. You're not going to be able to tell her.
When it comes to the high maintenance and
Yeah, she's high maintenance.
she's very high maintenance and spending money and all the things, she's that much like me. But when it comes to telling her you're not going to do something or
God.
you do not do this,
yeah,
that's all him.
She will learn the hard way.
She has
Just like
to.
I did. I mean, because, and that's the whole thing. That fire's hot. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
You know, stick your hand on it and see. And it's going to take that hand getting stuck on the
I
fire.
clearly remember being at one of my buddy's twins' birthday parties with my daughter when she was like 5. And it was at Bergfeld Park. And some mom was like, whose daughter is that? Oh my gosh. And I looked up and my daughter was like walking across like the handrail of a bridge, you know, like balancing on it. And I was like, I have insurance, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, have fun.
Yeah,
And then
a mom would freak out.
Meltdown.
yeah, they were like, stop that. When we went to cow camp with the kids, some of the moms, like throughout the day, would be like, oh, we're hearing a Bible message. Everybody's sitting down. Let me get my snacks that I brought for all the kids, you know. I'm like,
Just sit
it's
down.
good for them to be hungry.
Yeah.
It's good for them to shut up and listen
Yeah.
to this message. They don't need snacks.
Yeah.
When we moved into this house, one day we were cleaning the kitchen. I mean, we hadn't been here very long. And I was like, hey, babe, I don't know why we hadn't cooked. I was like, but this cooktop's hot. This little light's on. This burner feels hot. Don't touch it. And she's like, that's not hot. And I'm like, it is hot. And Michelle walked over and stuck her index finger on it. And then didn't say anything. And like, she couldn't get her finger off, like, I mean, it was hot. Like, it,
Stuck to it.
And so she walked over to the sink and turned it on, put it in the water. And I was like, hey, babe, are you good? Are you good? Like, hey, we need to go to the hospital. And like, tears started coming out of her face. Like, and like, I'd probably only seen her cry like 3 times.
Yeah.
She's just not, she's tough. The next time I told her, hey, the stove's hot, she didn't go touch it.
She didn't question it.
My story is I touched it and touched it and touched
Yeah.
it and touched it. And I was like, this time it'll be different.
Well, I touched it so many times that I got to like the pain.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing.
It became familiar.
It became a familiar feeling that it was a feeling.
Probably the only form of stability that you had in your life.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whenever you do X, Y, Z, this is the outcome.
I mean, and my kids probably look at me like I'm a teddy bear, like I'm just the soft as a bag of cotton balls. You know that guy that says, if you only knew the violence that it took to make me this calm, that hits with me, it kind of resonates because there's so much volatility
trauma
that has gotten me to this point to where I finally had enough. Like, it took a lot to push me to a point to where I finally had enough. In hindsight, looking back at all of it, every one of those little steps, the reason I didn't overdose on heroin when I was 14, the reason I didn't die in a car wreck, the reason that I didn't get charged instead of the charge that I got, which was aiding and abetting the possession of stolen mail. My mom had just got arrested for 20 keys in San Antonio. I was there. They were watching me. They were watching my brother. They got my brother with heroin. I was dead off in it. You know what I mean? For some odd reason, the night before, I had completely changed everything for some reason. I was going to the gun range the next day. I got pulled over. I had 10 different guns and 2 pieces of mail that was in a Walmart bag stuffed underneath the back seat. And that was the only evidence that they actually had to put aiding and abetting the possession of stolen mail, because the 2 pieces of mail were actually stolen pieces of mail from somebody using my car to go and steal people's mail. But the day before, I could have caught a federal drug charge.
So they had to find something on you.
Yeah, I mean,
they were digging, but it was there.
But think about it. I mean, if me looking at it now in hindsight, all of these things could have happened. I could have been in prison right now, and probably for the next 15 years, because Fed time, you do 80% or 85% of your time before you're even eligible for halfway house. Instead of that, I got 11 months.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to get probation or whatever, but when
it was mail.
Well, no, but when they looked at the point system, looked at everything.
Okay.
So when you put my mom in that picture, you put my brother in that picture. Oh, well, we're going to put him in prison because this is the type of person he is. Yeah, it's predetermined.
Yeah.
So for something that I should have got probation for.
Yeah.
I got
months.
jail time. And not only did I get jail time, I didn't go to a low. They sent me to a medium security. So I went from San Antonio to Leavenworth. That's a shithole. And then diesel therapy all the way back to Fort Worth pre-release. And then another 2 years of having a guy come in and watch me pee for 2 years straight every week.
I did that job too.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't. The first time we were first together, like we were staying out at my farmhouse, and this guy comes in. I mean, he was from the Eastern District, which is down towards like
Kentucky,
South Texas, Texas District. Got it. But it was like South or Western District of Texas was southwest border area. All right. He comes in there. What does he say, babe? He said I couldn't have what was it? The fishing pole.
You couldn't have a fishing pole, a fishing hook, or the only thing that he could have in his possession was a fishing pole.
Yeah, or I could go fishing or whatever because they didn't want me
wasn't-
having any type of weapons.
Yeah, he couldn't even have it. He couldn't be in possession of a BB gun.
Yeah.
Like,
And I said, dude, I could whoop your ass with that fishing pole.
and he just like looked at me because I said a fishing pole, and I was like, that could be used as a weapon, and he just looked at me and he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Clearly, you never had your ass busted with a fishing pole."
That's
He's
where
like, "Shut up."
we went through all this stuff. They come out and they whenever they wanted to, they come out and checked everything out. God's actually blessed me before I came to Him. He started blessing me before I came. Is what I'm getting at right now.
Yeah.
And not to draw it all out, but ADHD has got me going. So the whole process to the point to where I fell to my knees was all a blessing.
Yeah.
Like there were little blessings, and they came in the form of, hey, we're not gonna damn your whole life right here. We're gonna do this instead, and I'm not gonna let you die here because I'm not done with you. Going through the whole process of getting out of prison and then reacclimating to everything, even with her, there was a lot of grace that was shown there. Mercy, really. It's evident now to me more than it ever was before.
Once you taste the goodness of God, you can't untaste it.
No, you can't. You really can't.
Even whenever you're in the situations that you're in, you may not even have God on your mind anywhere near a thought.
Yeah.
Whenever you come to redemption,
It's
whenever you see
Absolutely.
His goodness in all of the hindsights, in all of every situation that He works in. And that's one of my favorite things. And it's like, you come to a point of redemption, you see the goodness of God in everything that He has done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Then you're really going to be looking for the goodness of God in the things that He will be doing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's something that is so unique about the whole faith in Jesus and what He actually did and accomplished on the cross for us.
Yeah.
In restoring that relationship with the Heavenly Father. We actually are able to walk in the Spirit and see that goodness everywhere.
Well, I mean, and I can look in the mirror and I know for a fact that I have no deficiencies. You know what I'm saying? Like my body might be going crazy or whatever.
Well, you can't hear, but it's fine.
I don't have any deficiencies.
Right.
As I sit right here in front of you, that I don't have any deficiencies. And I know that I don't have any deficiencies because that's the way God wants me to be.
Right.
And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to grasp. And I hope that if anybody can get anything from anything that we're saying is if it's that mirror, look in that mirror. Do you like that person?
Yeah.
If you don't like that person, then we need to talk to you.
The mirror is God.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, because He
exposes all
makes
that.
it. He makes it so that
Yeah.
you're worthy. I think it's hard for women because, like Paul and Melanie say, their question is, "Am I lovely? Am I lovely? Am I lovely?"
Yeah.
People talk about how men, they don't get affirmed they're lovable and they're worthy and, being good enough. But it's the same way with women, too.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of times you see women who struggle with knowing that they're self-worth, or they're literally going out of their way to feel accepted and worthy and loved, and it comes across as, I wouldn't wear that, or why is she dressed like that? She's just looking for that affirmation of that she's worthy of something better.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
She wants to be seen.
If you want to get into right now what's going on in the world, and everyday people, women and men both, are searching for that affirmation, and that's all they're searching for. They're not looking for a husband anymore.
Right.
So and then the husbands are looking for a wife, but they don't know how to be men.
Yeah.
They don't know how to be a husband.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of the shortcomings that we're seeing
in culture
right now.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
that
I mean,
we don't know.
I don't know that Michelle became a wife when we got married. I think she was a wife and then we got married. And
Absolutely.
I was a husband and then we got married.
Absolutely.
So it's a behavior, it's a trait, it's a choice.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Thanks for you clarified it for me.
And that's a lot of it too. Is I hear it so much, and people say, "Well, he's not making me happy. He doesn't make me happy, or she's not making me happy." It's not about that. They're looking to point the finger at somebody else, and the reality of it is God is not in the center of it, and they're not making the choices to have a home and and be a family and play their role.
Yeah.
As husband or wife.
The culture says, "Oh, we'll just post this on the internet,
Yeah.
and you'll get all the affirmation that you need."
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's literally believing the lie that
Yeah.
Satan
Yes.
wants you to believe.
Yep.
Well, I mean, and it comes down to like pride, looking good, feeling good, being right, being in control. All right, so where does pride fit into all of our lives all the time? I mean, and it's hard for me. Hard. I mean, that's one of my biggest number one things that I struggle with all the time, because I try to be right all the time, and I'm not. I'm not all the time.
Yeah.
I try to be in control of situations that are not in my purview. It is not up to me to control how my kids learn. They have to learn on their own. I can't control it.
That's where my mom comes into play, because
Yeah.
my mom was a helicopter mom.
Oh yeah.
And so whenever I was a kid, that's when kidnappings were real big.
Yeah.
That was one of her biggest fears, was somebody was going to take me. So she hovered and was in control of everything and had to know my every move. And so if she called you and said, "Hey, where are you?" and you didn't answer, she was going to your last known location, and she was going to start there. So I had that mom. And I had the part-time dad, because I'm not going to say he was a bad parent, because he wasn't.
Right.
He just was part-time, and his focus was making something of himself. So in turn, I took the brunt out of that. I see myself doing that to my kids. Our oldest, like I said before, she's kind of doing her own thing, and we're just now letting her drive in Tyler. And I'm like,
She actually works for Lowell's
Okay.
wife.
but I'm just like, I don't want her driving in Tyler. And he's like, she's got to do it. And I'm like,
she's gotta figure it out.
I catch myself being my mom, being that helicopter, and yes, and he's like, you got to let him do it. And I'm like, oh, but what if, What if? But that's where the trust in God and trust in Him to make the sound decision as the leader of our house and our family comes into play. And I have to follow that.
Because she diverts it to me. She'll divert it. And that's, I mean, honestly, that is my affirmation.
Yeah, exactly.
And, honestly,
she
like
brings it to you.
When she says, no, ask your dad, that is my affirmation that, hey, I'm doing something right. To where she trusts me.
Yeah.
Because you know how we're wired. I'm not wired to nurture.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not. I'm going to show you what this world is about. I do love my kids, and I tell them they're beautiful. I treat them like princesses most of the time.
Except for that oldest one.
Except for that oldest one, because she is everything but a princess. She is a diva. Oh, my God. She's like looking in a dang mirror. That is my affirmation, because when my wife, the nurturer, the one that will absolutely step in front of a train for these kids, says, hey, you make this decision with this, because she knows that she can rely on me to do that. Yeah. So
because a lot of times I can't force myself to make a decision that's not going to hinder them in their growth and their walk, knowing that God is with them in anything, literally. So if I can't make that decision, I let Him do it. And I have to trust that connection comes in, and I have to trust Him. Even though He knows how I feel about it, I have to trust it.
yeah.
I'm telling you, as a husband, to have a wife allow that leadership is amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the
really
wildest
is.
thing. It's like the most respectful thing that you can do.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the way I didn't realize I was worthy of love.
Yeah.
You know, because like my first marriage just destroyed me. That was a big deal with boot camp, you know, for me. When I realized that Michelle was like, you deal with the kid in this situation, you know, and I'll just get behind you on it. That was melted my heart. It was like a big deal.
It really
I didn't
does.
have that dynamic in my previous marriage, you know. And and I've given a lot of counsel to people. I think God hates divorce. And I think like this episode's not about divorce because y'all didn't get divorced, but you should have.
Yeah.
But we absolutely
on
should
pen
have.
and paper,
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I had met both of y'all 5 years ago, I would have said, "Hey,
Yeah. Well,
you're
what are
doing
you doing?
damage to your kids."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And so, how many people do we know that are like, "Well, we're just staying married for the kids," and I'm like, "You're just ensuring that your children are going to be convicts." Is what
Yeah,
you're doing.
it's what you're doing, yeah.
The environment that they live in is horrible.
You're-
I've told many men, like, "Hey, bud, get them on the weekends. Go be happy. You can't be happy. Your wife's not following." Like
Yeah.
even guys that actually tried. Like the
Yeah.
miracle to me is not that Daniel turned to God. It's that you did too.
Yeah.
So like I
Like,
think yeah, I mean
that's huge.
100%. Like you know, she saw his leadership and followed it, and I think a lot of guys aren't
and
leaders.
actually-
It wasn't her that saw the leadership, though. That's something I try to get across to guys
Okay.
all the time. Like, so the whole thing was it didn't have to do with anything that. So our marriage, that's the key. Like, it doesn't matter if she would have turned. If we would have got a divorce, it did not matter.
Yeah.
At that point,
Okay.
it didn't matter. My marriage did not matter.
Well,
What
let
mattered
me-
is me being a better person and doing what God wanted me to do.
Let me clarify this. Whenever I went, we had the breaking point, and I had already said, okay, everything's swept under the rug. They kept pushing because we were like, all right, we're still going to try. I was still kind of half trying,
Right.
you know, at this point. I went through Soft Warrior just to kind of like get the monkey off my back.
Yeah.
They drug me in. I was like a cow. I had my feet planted. They were dragging me in and pushing me by my butt, trying to get me in this thing. And so I finally went in, and I literally went just to get them to shut up, basically, not knowing that I was going to get the freedom that I got.
Yeah.
So it had really and truly, it wasn't him that did anything other than him pushing me and being the nagging husband. And the roles were
Yeah.
reversed at this point. He was a nagging husband to get me to go. I was like, all right, just shut up about it. You
Yeah.
know, just shut
Yeah.
up. I'll go. It was kind of like I'm throwing in the towel. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's literally kind of where I was at this last time. I was like, I'm throwing in the towel, and God I literally felt like He threw the towel back at me and was like, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're not
Right.
doing this," and pulled me straight up out of that hole by my bootstraps and let's go. And it was like, all right, here we are. And then I got the text from Trey.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, like
Yeah.
this is an opportunity. Like, and I feel like it was that reconnection.
Yeah, I know you've heard me tell people this that have come into and their marriage is going to shit. You know, it's going to hell in a handbasket. I don't know what to do. It's like a war zone in my house. I always tell them your wife does not matter. Your wife doesn't. You're married, number one. God hates divorce. You've heard
Gotcha.
that plenty of times. Is anything that she's doing when you step into that gate and it's time for you to be judged, is your marriage going to come up because of something your wife did? Ask yourself that question, because it's not.
Yeah.
It has absolutely nothing to do with your salvation. All right? What you should do is what you're commanded to do. 100%. Now, the Holy Spirit will either, which 9 out of 10 times, and Paul will be a test to this, he will tell you 9 out of 10 times when I can get the husband, when he can be real and get with God on a personal level and start living in that, it always happens that the wife will fall right into place. Because of what? Not because the husband's nagging, not because he's doing anything, because the Holy Spirit will work on her. All right? You're married. You're already in a union that is blessed by God. No matter if you entered into it with God in your heart, you know, because He's always there. Or like if you acknowledged God in your heart, you're already in that commitment.
And the Holy Spirit convicts.
Yeah. And
These guys come in, they go, my wife won't follow. I go, well, you're a shitty leader.
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing? You praying with your wife? No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you praying with her? Are
you loving your wife? No.
Yeah.
And
How many times you called her a bitch? What do you mean you called her a bitch? Now, did Christ
you do
ever
that to
call
her face?
anybody a bitch?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like those things, we hear it. We hear it all the time. Do we not? It's something that I hear, even guys at work. All right, and that's the whole thing. Like working over there where I'm working right now, it's really really hard. I have to bite my tongue because people that I work with that are from here, you know, they have these issues, and I have to just, you know, like, because I just want to tell them, look, man, it has nothing to do with what your wife is doing. It has everything to do with what you're doing. And I've told people that over and over again, and I probably shouldn't tell them that because it probably throws a lot of people for a loop, but...
Well, you might need to treat them like you treat your wife. Do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to fix it?
Yeah, give them that preface.
Yeah, give them that preface. Yeah, I mean, because I will listen, but at the same time, like,
Well, and it's funny to see some of the looks on their faces, like, because when we on FaceTime, and he will be like, hey, look what my wife just bought, or look at what my wife just did, and they're like, your wife did what? And you're not mad about it, you know, or you're not upset, and he's like, no. I mean, he knew who I was. He knows who I am, you know. It's like, so it's funny to see some of the looks on their faces and the reactions, because a lot of it, you know, it's like a cliche of how you're supposed to react,
Right.
but when you don't react in that way, it throws people completely off. People don't understand it when I say I could literally be with him every day, all day. No, you can't. No, you can't. Yes, I can. We could literally be together.
Well,
all day, every day.
is there anything that either one of y'all want to say that you haven't had an opportunity to say?
The only thing I can really say is the respect. The wives should need to respect their husband unconditionally, and it's not, oh, well, when he earns it. It's God says, you know, unconditionally. And the husband has loved their wife unconditionally. And that was something that was hard for me to grasp. The first time I heard that, I was like, I'm not going to respect him until he earns it. When I got really dug into that, it made me realize that, and when it comes into play, and whenever you do that, everything starts falling into play. Yeah. And it's just a natural thing. And
like in a man-to-man situation, you'll hear like respect is earned, not given.
Yes.
Which is not true.
That's not
true
at all.
The way men actually operate is respect initially prior to investigation. And the moment we sense disrespect, there could be physical, mental,
spiritual, whatever.
Something happens.
See, that was my mindset.
Honor until dishonored.
That was my mindset. Was respect is earned.
Yeah.
For a long time, and I'm like, wait
like
a minute.
merit-based deal.
Yes, absolutely.
The problem is we go around wanting justice. You know,
right?
Yeah.
My husband wasn't loving to me, so I'm disrespectful to him. But then what we really want is for him to love us, or to respect us. Even when we're not loving, even when we're not respectful, right? So like what we want is mercy.
Yeah.
But we want to pull out the voodoo doll and get
Yeah. The last thing that I really think I have to say is, not all hope is lost. I mean, if you evaluate the situation and try something different before you throw in the towel. Because you never know what God has planned for you until you turn to him and give him your full attention.
You can't give what you don't have.
Exactly.
And you can't have what you've never had.
Exactly.
If you're not willing to do what you've never done.
Yep.
So
is that Confucius?
That's actually exactly what I was saying. It's like Confucius said.
So my question is, at what point did both of y'all get on the same page with like, hey God, what do you want for me or for us? Like, did y'all ever finally
When I come out of Soft Warrior.
Then y'all were on the same team. Y'all were both like, okay, God, direct this marriage.
We were both hungry.
We're both hungry.
The harvest was ready.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's what it was. And it's molded because as time's gone by, I've changed and I've learned and dug deeper. This wasn't a 2-week or a 2-month transition here. This is up until 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and 2 years ago is where I think we really settled into it.
That's crazy. 2 years. That it just set in. This has only been the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean,
That's
the last
crazy.
couple of years is when it's actually like it's set in.
Yeah.
You know, 2023 to now
Yeah.
is when it's really set in, and we've gotten comfortable in it.
Yeah.
And up until that point, from she got out of Soft Warriors up until 2023, it was really we were learning.
Yeah.
So we were learning and we were molding and working with each other on things. And then there were still conversations that couldn't be had that were tough to come across, you know, and tough to talk about because the enemy will keep attacking, you know, and especially when you get close to God.
Oh,
And-
You get close to God. I mean, that's just one of those things that you should always expect it to be
You're putting
hard.
a target.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yourself.
and making pre-forgiveness a lifestyle really is, I mean, it's crucial in a marriage because he's not perfect, I'm not perfect, and so if you live in and walk in pre-forgiveness, then, you know, you've already, but they do something, it's easy to move past it. It's easy to communicate it and discuss it if it warrants a discussion. Not every action requires a reaction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes he'll say something and I'm like, really? You know, and then it just go on about, and he never even realizes it. I don't let it bother me because
Right.
it's pre-forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I know now it's not what he meant. So getting to know your spouse and really zoning in on what the Lord has for the both of you as individuals and as a partner will really set the pace and set the tone and on how it's supposed to be and make it a lifestyle.
Yeah, every day.
You know, you'll keep going back to a restaurant when they make a mistake on your order.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let God not show up when you want him to and you're done with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why do you keep giving the restaurants chances?
A chance instead
but
of
instead
God.
of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the same way with your marriage. Just you keep making a mistake, okay? Fix it. Give it an opportunity to be fixed,
Yeah.
and have God in the center of it. Let God be the chef.
And if you can't find a way to fix it, post my name on this podcast.
Okay.
You can look me up on Facebook. Guys only. I don't want no girls coming to me for advice.
Women can
I'm
go
sorry.
to Ashley.
The women
Yes,
can go
for
to
sure.
Ashley.
We'll
I'm sorry.
we will definitely point them to her.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
mean, definitely. I mean, that's one of the things. Like, I'm on Facebook. DM me, and I will talk to you over DM. You can call me. Your schedule is the same as mine, mostly. I sleep maybe 5 hours. I don't care what time of night it is,
Yeah.
but I'm there. Like,
I always
I'll
have
help.
coffee. The light's always on.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're readily available to help others. I mean, because Paul and Melanie really did us a solid, and they fought tooth and nail for us with God on their side. So now it's
Yeah.
our turn.
Keep
And
that going.
to keep it going and to help others because
I can't give all the answers. I mean, and that's the whole thing. Like, everybody's different. I don't have all the answers,
Definitely.
but I know what God did for me.
Yeah.
And I know
Absolutely.
that I can be a conduit for somebody, maybe help. I mean,
And I'm definitely not a Melanie. I'm not as soft spoken. I might look at you and be like, "Are you dumb? What did you just say? What did,
did you
do?"
just really say that?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a little rough around the edges still.
I gotta go see them.
But
Yeah.
I've been home. I've been
It's-
home for like 3 weeks and I hadn't went and seen anybody. I've been at home. You know, and that's the whole thing. Like, I used to always be out. Like, I'm so involved in everything that's going on at home that I've actually been a little disconnected.
Well, what a beautiful story. What a beautiful marriage. I'm honored that y'all were the first married couple that we've brought on. I think it's y'all definitely
Set a
showed
tone.
your faith in a big way.
Yeah.
You know.
I hope y'all get some more married people because I
Oh,
want
we
to see
will.
different perspectives and different stories. It's always something cool to see.
I've already started poking and prodding at
Okay.
Nick Swinford.
Okay.
And
Oh, Nick.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
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 Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Nick will be a good one.
He's pretty
Nick and Bailey were
Good
fun.
folks.
Thank y'all for coming
Thank y'all so
and being
much.
away. It's another episode of Two Dudes, One God Pod.
Y'all stay blessed.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Amen.